transitory.
Well, I didn't clear my throat before starting. Whoops. I'm a streamer. That's a good way to start a video. Good lord. This is why I don't stream, because I'm terrible at it. No. What was it saying? Raiden was being annoying. That's what I was going to say. And this is just going to be a stream where I try to take probably... Okay, so I titled this stream like it's like a short video. If you know me, this might not be short. I might get distracted for too long. I need to... Oh, you know what? I meant to actually start this stream in Fontaine, and I completely have forgotten already, because there's a butthole somewhere. Where... Okay, I might need to have someone help me figure out where the butthole is. There's a mechanical boss creature thingy, one of the local legends, that when you... Lots of chests here. Thank you for my very specific pin past me. There's a local legend that lets you jump, right? So, and notably, if you've seen any of the leaks, Xian Yun, Cloud Retainer, then you might know that height is about the same as Xian Yun's plunge buffing or jump buffing thing, which is to say, is good. That you can test it specifically. So, why is this? Okay, I just logged in. OBS had an update to like log into YouTube for a control panel, and it was working. And then as soon as I started streaming, it stopped working. Is this about leaks? Yes, that's why the characters are in the thumbnail. I'm not going to show any gameplay or anything, but I will be talking about their kits and then showing some things in game. Hopefully. Testing some things in game to try to show the concept of some ideas I'm thinking about with these characters. Gaming in particular, and I'm gonna call him Gaming, by the way, because no, I'm not calling him gaming unless I'm memeing. You know, I might call him gaming, but no, he's Gaming. Let's be real. I sincerely hope he's called Gaming in game, like his character names. But anyways, yeah, I gotta talk about leaks. So, if it wasn't obvious, you know, I've been doing these streams a little bit where I talk about leaks for characters and my takes on them. I don't know why I even went over there in the first place, but why is Official in the team right now? I have no idea. It doesn't really matter for Overworld, but everything dies regardless.
The wrong test subject.
The wrong test subject. So, anyways. We're gonna figure out where that local legend is. I'm gonna do my farming. I don't know what word I was trying to say there. I do my farming real quick because then I will not forget to do it later. That's why. Plus, I want to let some people join in the stream. So if you're watching the VOD, then I'm gonna maybe skip ahead a little bit until I start talking about them more in depth. But overall, if you want my previewed opinions without getting in depth about them, Xian Yun I think is a really niche animo unit. I think she seems super fun. I am going to get her because she is like exactly the kind of character that does goofy things that I like. It's the kind of character that enables me to do things that I enjoy in Genshin, right? She like because the perspective I try to take with Genshin characters is usually one along the lines of like, what does this character enable me to do, right? And she enables potentially not much other than her plunging gimmick, right? It's not like that's insane. Ow, don't kill me. It's not like that's insane. I don't think she's gonna revolutionize the Genshin meta or anything, but she does seem super fun to play around with, and I think she will make some team variations better. Okay, thank you. I would have really preferred that in Emblem, but you know what? I don't think I actually had a crit rate circlet in Chiminawas, which is part of the reason I'm fine. I'm trying to mostly farm for Hybrid Raiden, but anyways, whatever. That's good. That's good. Phase 2 is Raiden and Yoimiya, I believe. I think they announced that, right? It's near the top right waypoint in Fontaine, or just the boss fight itself. Thank you, thank you. I'll put a marker there for the local legend. Near this one. Okay, I'm just gonna put a marker there, somewhere there. I'll find it. 3 hours later, and the point still hasn't been made. Yeah, I know, right? So, anyways, the thing with Xianyun is like I think she's probably a bit niche, however you want to pronounce it. And that makes her hard to recommend as a 5-star animo that's meant to, you know, fulfill a supportive role, because she just doesn't feel as relevant of a supportive role as the other animo units do, if that makes sense. Don't look into how this team's performing, by the way. It's not exactly the ideal team for this Abyss, and on top of that, I'm not even trying to do anything. I'm just kind of talking. Bro, I need that circlet. I still only have a crit damage one. I mean, that's what my situation was in this account until just that circlet. And as long as it doesn't roll terribly, you know, now I have a crit rate circlet. I think I only had... Yeah, I only had this one. I only had this crit damage circlet, which is a good circlet. It's just weird. And, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to need this Shimenawa's piece specifically, but that could be very, very good, obviously. So, I will consider that a win. But I am mostly here for hybrid riding pieces. I don't even think that was necessary. Ow. Can you die, slime? Okay, thank you. Anyways, so the plunge gimmick. Wait, that's what Xian Yun does, right? It's her plunge gimmick. I'm gonna go over her kit after I'm done farming here, and I'll have more specific thoughts, and I'll try to demonstrate things. But can I get not Shimenawa's pieces? The game is making me regret trying to farm Emblem instead of just strongboxing. She's just in a really weird state right now, in my opinion, and I'll talk about the specifics. I don't think her buff is as... her buff is big for, like, plunge damage, but it's a single target focus buff, and I really personally dislike that. And oh, don't get it. And I don't think the game really needs that many single target buffs, so I'm not sure what the purpose, what their intention with that buff is, other than, you know, you'll get some nice dopamine from seeing big ol' plunge damage numbers, because she does buff one instance of plunge damage a lot, which is cool. Okay, you have just all the Shimenawa's pieces today. All right. And your opinion, of course, like her NAs, or like Ningguang's, I guess, but way better. Comparing her to Ningguang is a bit weird. It's an animo character. She's designed to be an animo support, right? So I'm trying to take one perspective, which is the meta perspective, which is comparing her utility to other animos, right? Like, she's a 5-star animo. She has to get compared to Kazuha. And there's some aspects where she is actually favorably compared to Kazuha. But on a generic level, right, she's not as relevant as them. And I don't know who's watching this, my videos, right? I don't know the state of your account. I don't know the kind of player you are. All I can say is, like, Xian Yun, it looks like someone that's going to be amazingly fun for me to have and play around with, and I want her for that. So I like her kit, but I don't think she's going to be super relevant for the vast majority of players. That's kind of it. Outside of just, you know, well, at the same time, I say that, but she will be relevant for a lot of players because she's just a generic, nice overworld character, most likely, because of her floaty, fly ability, right? Like, any exploration character is nice. I forgot I got that. I should level that up to level 4 here. Is there anything else I need to level up real quick? I got so many random artifacts and different random stupid things I'm trying to work on leveling up. I just can't even keep track of it anymore. I think it's mostly just, yeah, we're gonna level up this circlet to see if it rolls crit damage, and it's not going to, because why would it? Told you. Alright, and then we try this Shimenawa's piece, which could be one of the most cracked circlets you've ever seen, especially for Shimenawa's. Attack is fine. Crit damage, minimum roll crit damage. This is okay. See, multiple minimum rolls and crit damage is where minimum rolls start to be really sad. It's not one min roll is the problem; it's multiple. because now this is barely better than a max crit damage roll. but it's fine. It's okay. We're avoiding flat attack. It's fine. This is a Thanos piece so far. Okay, this is literally a Thanos piece, and I don't even have any more. Okay. I am now not very excited about this piece, and I want my fodder back. That's what I can say. This piece does nothing for me. It's not a bad piece. I am certainly not throwing it away. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I refuse to count double min roll crit damage as 2 lines of stat value. 5 lines of stat value on a circlet is very high. It's just like, yeah. That piece does nothing for me, and I might throw it away, I'll be honest. Anywho's. So, Gaming, I think, is very, very interesting. We will see if he gets nerfed. So let's go somewhere I can plop the characters down, get some music going on. Let's go. Is there a chair in? There's a chair over here, I think, right? So, I'm going to sit Raiden's butt down. I'm going to go to Amber. I've already prepared. I blocked out any of the images, so I don't think Mahoy was going to copyright me. It worked the last time. Hopefully it'll work this time too. And you saw Gaming's gameplay. You're confused what he does. Well, you're coming to the right place because I'm going to now explain the thingies. Why does my stream... Bro, this stream dashboard is useless in OBS. I went to the effort of taking 5 minutes to log in. I had to use all my freaking security logins and whatever. And then it just doesn't function. It just breaks. Okay, whatever. Let's go here. Make sure this looks correct. Good. Where's my blam? Is it selected? Yes, it is. Okay. Blam. Okay, blam. There we go. Got it. So Gaming, I'm going to talk about first. I'm going to talk about both of them, but Gaming's a little bit simpler on a. Let me know if the music is too loud, by the way, in the background. Gaming's a little bit simpler to talk about. So, yeah. Normal attacks don't matter. And... just coughed crap in my throat. Let me take a drink of water. Passives are pretty simple. The notable one, this one is kind of whatever. He gets some pyro damage bonus if he has more than 50% HP, which is usually. He is fairly HP positive, particularly if you have his C1. If you don't have C1, it's going to be a little bit more... But I think the intention with the C1 is largely to make sure he's always above 50% HP, and therefore basically always has 20% pyro damage bonus. At C0, you might run into more limits on how many plunge attacks you can do because of how his burst works, but we'll get into it. Notable here though, keep in mind that for 1 second after hitting an opponent with his, this is his plunge attack, it's basically the name for his plunge attack. And his skill, but his skill has a bunch of times you can use it. He will recover 10% of his HP. So, and his skill. He pounces forward with the blah blah blah, leaps high in the air, and his animations are great. You can look them up yourself. He looks super fun to play. His fast animations look pretty fluid. After he uses the ability to rise in the air, he will use an especially flower plunging attack to perform a plunging attack, which, one of the phrasings of all time. After he goes in the air, he will use a plunging attack to perform a plunging attack. 10 out of 10. So, anyways, this is what his whole kit is around, right? So, damage is considered pyro damage, of course, duh, I would hope. Upon landing, he's a claymore, by the way, for what it's worth. And then, upon landing, he will consume a fixed amount of HP. He has no normal attack infusion, so unless you're using C6 Bennett, these aren't relevant at all. But if you want the normal attack scalings, there they are. It's honestly, his normal attack scalings are pretty bad as far as claymores go, so I wouldn't bother leveling them up meaningfully even with C6 Bennett. So anyways, the important ability, of course, is his skill, and this is where the majority of his damage is going to come from. And there's going to be interesting nuance in how many skills you can get out of him based on how his burst works. But notably, the thing to keep in mind is, level 9 talent's about 400% multiplier. If you have C3, he goes to 460% multiplier at level 12, up to 490 if you crown. And it consumes 15% of his max HP whenever you do a plunging attack. But Keep in mind, after 1 second of hitting an opponent with a plunging attack, he will recover 10% of his HP. Right, so functionally the net loss is 5% HP, so that's a loss of HP and then gains 10% back. And that's notable for something like Marshasei Hunters, right? So this character, this is a 4-star DPS that can use Marshasei Hunters without Furina. Although Furina is a potentially very good teammate for him, to be clear. And you much prefer DPS with Infusion? I think you're underestimating this character then. That's what I can say. He looks pretty good, is what I'll say. But anyway, like, it's gonna depend on how if he survives beta, to be clear, and it's also gonna depend a bit on skill expression, because that's going to determine how many skills you can get out from his burst. So let's describe his burst. So he enters the Wusho stance, recovering a fixed amount of HP, and summons the companion, a little dog thing, that smashes into the target, dealing AoE pyro damage. As far as I'm aware, this only deals damage once, even though the dog gets summoned multiple times, but it might actually deal damage multiple times. I haven't actually seen 100% confirmation of that. But what's more about it is it enabling extra skills. If it does genuinely deal this multiplier multiple times, that's a bit ridiculous, and I'd be very surprised, but I'm pretty sure it only deals it the one time. So, after the dog hits the target, so it runs to an enemy, whatever, and then it will roll to a nearby location before moving to Gaming. We haven't seen enough footage of what exactly this looks like, but I'll talk about it more. When it links up with him, so when it comes back to your character, it will leave the field and reset the cooldown for his elemental skill. The cooldown is 6 seconds, right? And then you can use the skill again, right? More damage, cool. While the stance is active, when Gaming performs one of his skill, his plunge attack, then with over 50% HP, right? So this is the main requirement. So the with over 50% HP is the limitation on how many plunges you can get, but realistically the limitation is more the time that the dog spends rather than the HP. But this will come into play if you are getting hit a lot, particularly if you only have the free copy from the Liyue, the Lantern Right selector, right? Anyways, so he resets the cooldown for the skill, right? You use the skill, which if you're over 50% HP, after you complete the pounce, he summons the dog again, which then repeats this loop, right? So that means the dog goes out, and then it comes back to him, resets the cooldown again, right? So it's looking like to be clear, this was told me by one person that said they talked to people in beta. I don't know if they talked to people in beta directly from people that were in beta. I don't know, but it looks like this burst enables you to use his skill around 8 times potentially. That might be a very high skill expression thing, but there's things that you can do. So you're right, with the dog that runs out to a nearby opponent, apparently you can try to intercept the dog to catch it early, which means you're getting more skill resets. So that's where the skill expression I talked about comes in. And if we're doing 8 times, so we're gonna assume like a C0, right? I want to emphasize that this is a C0 4-star that is definitely better than Dia as far as Claymore Pyro Claymores go. Is almost assuredly better than Diluc if he survives beta. and what's particularly sad is we'll talk about Xian Yun and how she can buff Diluc Dragon Strike and make it more of a thing than just Diluc Dragon Strike was a thing before Xian Yun, but it was really technically hard to pull off like frame perfect things or near frame perfect things to pull it off. Whereas now Xian Yun just makes it easy, but Gaming is just going to be a more fun and probably better version of that. So anyways, yes, he can use Vermilion, he can use MH, and he can be paired with, he's a good teammate for Furina, he's a good teammate for Xian Yun. Anyways, notably, he has Fremine got kind of screwed. Fremine has a similar kind of gimmick going on where he could use multiple skills a bunch. The thing is, Fremine got screwed in particular. Well, Fremine got screwed in a lot of ways, but Fremine got screwed One way in that he has ICD between his multiple skill uses. Right now, Gaming does not have ICD, and for those that don't know what ICD is, that means he applies Pyro every hit. So that means every time you do this 500% multiplier, you can do a vape or whatever other reaction. You could do a vape, a melt, an overload, and whatnot. And this also has a decent sized AoE too. So I honestly think there's utility for him as a Burgeon enabler. His energy cost isn't insane. And like, as long as you can afford him being on field, right? I honestly think he seems more fun as a Burgeon character at C0, substantially so, than Toma. Toma has a really annoying energy cost at C0 and low like downtime issues, whereas like this character won't have those issues. But anyways, no ICD right now on his skill, and he generates 2 particles every time his skill hits. And if you're using like 8, if you're getting potentially 8 plunges out, right? That's 10 particles that he catches on field. Like, this character's energy cost is functionally quite low. So you can spec very much into crit, basically, is my point. He can be a really good Crimson user too. He's a rare character who can use a bunch of skills and take advantage of the full Crimson set bonus, right? So Crimson will be a good combination for him too. Realistically, though, I'm guessing Marsh say it's going to end up being his best set, even though the 2 piece is kind of wasted. But we'll see. I think Crimson might be fairly competitive, particularly if you already have really good Crimson pieces. But anyways, let's estimate at C0, and I'm gonna, instead of 8 plunge attacks, let's assume we're getting this 400% multiplier on a C0. So you just got the free copy of Gaming times let's say 6, right? That'd be a 2400% total multiplier plus the multiplier from this this ability. So that's about 3000%, and that's not like that insane, to be clear. But not having ICD, not having energy issues, right? Like I still think 3000%. If we go, well, I'm not gonna open up. I don't want to open up any other pages here because I might risk accidentally showing like the imagery, and then I might get a copyright strike. But basically, Dia is much worse than this character is at C0. This character's better at C0. So, and that 2400% multiplier, to be clear, if you're considering vaping or even melting potentially, although melting consistently because this character's going to apply, it'd be interesting to think about probably consistently melting with them. I don't think there's much feasible way you could do it realistically, but maybe with 2 cryo teammates you could try to melt consistently. But just the traditional vape situation with like Farina is going to make more sense. So this 400% multiplier is not going to get you, Navia level nukes every single time you hit, to be clear. But he hits a lot with them. And you can still get big vape damage. You can still use all the strong external EM buffers that there is in the game. You can use Farina that synergizes well with his kit. And he's strong. So this 400%, I would say, with external EM buffs, is really easy to functionally turn into an 800% multiplier functionally. The reason I'm saying 800% is, again, it has no ICD. It can vape every hit, so if you're vaping every hit, then functionally you're doubling the damage with a little bit, like the base multiplier for Vaporize when you're triggering Pyro on a Hydro Aura is 1.5 times. With a good chunk of EM, I think it's around the 250, 300 mark, you get 2 times. So, talking about an 800% functional multiplier times, 6 is now 4800 plus, if you vape the burst hit too, another 1200. That's a C0 Forcer that has 6000% multiplier in a vape situation. 6000% functional multiplier if you're comparing it to someone like Navia, right? Navia, you don't have any, like, the reason Navia has such higher scaling is because, like, she doesn't have the ability to use a Vaporize on her ability, right? So the multiplier of a Pyro ability that can vape is not the same as the multiplier for a Geo ability that can't vape, right? So you can hit some real big, like, newt damage with this character with each one of their skills, and it's in AoE, and his AoE gets bigger with C6. His constellations don't seem necessary for what it's worth. So C1, I am not 100% sure. Like, I think with how many plunges it seems like you get, I don't think keeping up Marsh to say at C0 is going to be an issue. But with C1, it basically means whenever the dog gets collected again, you heal 25% HP, which he goes from HP positive at C0 to very HP positive at C1. And that's most relevant for his C2 in particular, because if you have overflow healing, his attack will be increased, which is, it's fine for a constellation. C4 is just give him even less energy issues, and then C6 is the notable one, gives him 20% crit rate and 40% crit damage, so that's 80 crit value. And attack radius goes from like 4 meter attack radius to 6 meters on his skill. So this character seems deceptively simple at a glance, but the amount of options he has and how competent he looks as a C0 is ridiculous. This is like genuinely, he's potentially good enough to be a 5-star. You change him from I think he has attack ascension. I'm not going to go to the other page because it would show his image, but you know, change him. You know, obviously his constellations would be restructured as a 5-star and whatever, but give him a crit ascension instead of attack ascension or whatever he has, and blam, you got a 5-star. Like, genuinely, I'm not joking. That's what he seems like right now. So is he going to get nerfed? I don't know. I really don't know. Like, they're not stupid, right? It is my thinking. They know that this character is strong at C0 right now, and I think that's intentional. And that's why I am relatively optimistic he's not going to get nerfed to Oblivion. But maybe they'll decide that they don't want a strong 4-star DPS. My thinking is they want Gaming to be a plunge DPS that makes sense for people to try to pull for Xian Yun, right? Because I bet they're going to put him on Xian Yun's banner, and because she's going to be a meaningful buffer for him, even if she's not necessary. And his constellations, you can get some crit and some blah blah blah, right? Like, people will pull for Xian Yun just because she's good with Gaming that they get for free, right? So I think that's part of the strategy. And I think they also might just be having a strategy of trying to, you know, get people to play Genshin more. So they're trying to make better characters. And I don't know. And it's interesting. It is all I can say. I'm relatively optimistic right now because they're not dumb. They oops, I should turn off notifications. They very well know that this character can get a vaporize every single hit, and they were able to test this. It's not like this character is so complicated that MiHoYo just like accidentally let it slip through the cracks and now it's in beta and now people know about it. Like, no, they know this character is decent. So does he stay decent? I hope so. I think so. I'm gonna be optimistic. Any questions about him before whatever? Isn't his AoE with C6 almost non-existent? In my opinion, no. So, oops, I just made Genshin go away. So Bennett's AoE, if I recall, is around the 6 meter mark, right? So let's go charge up his ult somewhere. Bennett's AoE is a 6 meter mark, which is what his plunge hit AoE is on. I could be wrong. I might have to double check Bennett's AoE, but I'm fairly confident it's about 6 meters. Blam. Alright. So, how big this circle is right from this point, this is 6 meters. So 4 meters is, you know, from where I'm standing right here, probably to the edge, right? Like, it's more, when I saw his C6, I was definitely like, okay, this character is probably, you know, gonna not have very good AoE in their base kit, but they have a 4 meter AoE. I'd have to double check in what else is a 4 meter AoE, but it's enough of an AoE that I think you'll notice the AoE. It's not to say like you're not gonna want a grouper necessarily, because there's just so many situations that make you want a grouper. Again, Xian Yun, they're trying to sell Xian Yun with this character. Wink. So, you know, it'll be nice to have a grouper, because if enemies aren't, like, right, if you have 3 crabs that are this far apart, you're not going to hit all 3 of them at the same time, especially because his skill, when you do his plunge, he uses skill, he jumps up in the air, and then he plunges down. that auto-targets an enemy. So, you know, if you have enemies a little bit spread apart like this, right? Press the skill, it's going to auto-target this and then plunge down to him. So that might mean you don't hit another one, even if it is within like a... Because it's going to have the Genshin problem where like, okay, these enemies are technically might be within 4 meters from each other, but you can't target the spot in between them. You have to target a spot centered on the enemy because it auto-targets the enemy, right? So groupers are still going to be nice with them, as they are with most units. And how relevant is the extra AoE on his C6 then? I don't think it's necessarily super relevant. I think it would be nice. It'd be cool. But the crit is the main value from the C6, realistically. Pyro character with no ICD sounds too familiar. Anyways. Oh yeah, anyways, the C2 Kazuha will still be better. C2 Kazuha better than Xian Yun? Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing. Like, again, like, I'm not trying to, like, pressure people into pulling Xian Yun for gaming. I'm just saying I think that's part of their strategy, is why he's might be as decent as he is. Also, like, leeway bias, and they like, I don't know. Having played since Lantern Ray from 2 years ago when Yunjin was a new character, and I really like Yunjin. I think Yunjin is a good, relevant character, especially for how a lot of people play this game, and I think she's just undervalued because, you know, people that think about the game from a meta perspective specifically will not really consider the fact how valuable just seeing big number might be to someone from normal attacks. And I like Yunjin as a flex slot. I don't think Yunjin's perfect, but then there's Yao Yao last year. Like, Yao Yao is an anomaly of a 4-star too. Yao Yao is a C0 4-star that genuinely has more relevance in some teams than Baiju has. Like, she's genuinely better than Baiju in a lot of ways. And that's ridiculous. And this is also a C0 4-star they released during Lantern Right. Like, of the 3 characters that I've seen them released during Lantern Right, Eugene's definitely the worst one. But it does seem there's at least a pattern at this point, to me, of releasing good characters in Lantern Right. And I don't know. It's interesting. So, can Xian Yun fix Xiao's knockback? That's an interesting question. I don't necessarily think so. So, one thing actually, let me put Kazuo on the team. And we'll talk about Xianyun. So anyways, I like Gaming. I think he's going to be potentially strong. He might get nerfed. I could be wrong. I'm going to remain optimistic about him because I foresee him as a strategy to try to get people interested in him. And like he's called gaming, right? I smell his name being marketing because like he's the first Genji character. Like, I absolutely love Freedom on a mechanical level, but I didn't talk about this character with my friends. You want to know who I did talk about with my friends? Freaking Gaming. But I didn't talk about his kid. I just was like, haha, look, do you want to laugh? Hey, my friends, do you want to laugh at the next Genshin character? It's called Gaming. And I was like, ah, shit, I fell to their marketing ploy, right? Like, that was the goal. And, like, this is a character they're trying to be sneaky with. They're trying to get more people to play Genshin because, like, the leeway selector is a perfect time to start playing Genshin, right? You could start playing Genshin, get to leeway, get this character that uses leeway ascension materials. You don't have any problem leveling him up, whatever. And I don't know what boss he uses. And like it smells of it's a marketing thing, right? They're trying to make this character good, decently good, because it's marketing. They're trying to make money ultimately, which is a win for all players, to be clear. It's just funny that this character might be a better C0 as a 4-star that is literally completely free than someone like Dia. So, anyways, let's yeah. I can't stand Yaya. She's so awkward to use. The more you use Yaya, the more you appreciate her. I'm not saying she's it for everyone, but she is very strong. So, anyways, I can't believe they made a healer that heals as much as she does. Is crazy. So, use Linny boss materials. I don't know what. Oh, it's the crab. So that's a little bit annoying if you're a new player. You'd have to walk your butt all the frick way over to Fontaine. But being notable, interesting aspect actually. Remember how, you know, so the next update is adding Chenyu Veil, which I believe is like right in this section. So there's gonna be a big old hole here, which is funny. But if you're a new player you will, if you get gaming, right, you'll know that there's a connection from this area to this area. And then, like, I don't know, the experience as a new player, when if you're playing new and you have the ability to like walk this way or walk this way, I think you'll naturally push yourself towards walking this way through Xianyun Vale into where the boss is, right? Which is cool. And I think part of the reason this harbor is here is so that they can, you know, have Xianyun Vale connect to it, and then you can get up to Fontaine through the harbor. But I don't know. I'm going to remain optimistic because it's too perfect of a storm for them to utilize a free character as a selling point for other things that they're doing, and to try to potentially revitalize, you know, the player base, both existing player base and, you know, either players that left that might come back because he's free, and they hear, you know, people like me talking, like, I don't know, it's possible that my friends might start playing Genshin again after I, like, gush about this character being free. Like, genuinely, I might, like, some of them that are, like, passively interested in maybe playing Genshin, I'd be like, hey, you maybe want to log in to do this event so you can just get this one dude for free, you might enjoy it. And that's kind of it, and that's probably the strategy, so I don't know. But if they give him ICD on his freaking skill, no. Do not do that, Hoyo. That's the number one thing. Like, they could make his energy cost worse. I'd be like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. I wouldn't necessarily be happy because, you know, his energy might go from not much he needs to you need C4 or you have 148 ER. I'd not prefer that, but it's not the end of the world. And then, yeah, so I think that's all I got for Gaming. We'll see. We'll see. Thoughts on Chiori? I think she's probably going to be a niche Navia buffer, but my hope is that Chiori does something with Crystallize on a generic level, like basically a fixed version of the fixed version of the Archaic Petra set is kind of what I want in her character kit, wherein if she says upon obtaining an elemental or a crystallized shard, she'd have to like help pick them up in some form. But if she gives some kind of damage bonus to the whole team, and not this, you know, have to pick it up by a specific character, like Archaic Petra is a clunky set. I don't like it. I think Chiori might be she's either going to be a niche Navia buffer, or she's going to be a decent Navia buffer in that she's just going to be like a healer that's good for using with Navia and Frina together. But my hope is that she does something slightly more so that there's reason to pull for her outside of that. But at a baseline, being a decent Geo healer would also be nice for Frina with Ito, for example. It's like Frina with Ito doesn't work nearly as well because you have to like force an Anemo into the team or something. And that means sacrificing like Geo's like incentive to use mono Geo stuff, right? So, anyways, I'll give Yayo another chance if he gets C6 Candace. Nice. So, anyways, let's talk about. I'm going to talk about Xian Yun's grouping real quick. So, Xian Yun has, and then where is her passive? There we go. I need to take a drink of water. I got crap in my throat, man. I keep on dying. My throat keeps on dying. So this is her skill. After her skill hits, which I'll talk about the nuance of her skill. There's a little bit more asterisk than just using her skill in her kit. If you haven't seen anything of Cloud Retainer / Xian Yun's kit, I could be pronouncing that wrong, by the way. I'm just hoping I'm mostly pronouncing it okay. It'll generate a vortex in front of it that will pull nearby opponents and objects in. The interesting thing about that, and I'm gonna disclaimer, don't get too hyped about this when I say this if you haven't seen her grouping at all yet. It is stronger than Kazuha, right? So it is stronger grouping than Kazuha. The fact that we're starting from there is a good thing, to be clear. But there's a couple things about Kazuha's grouping that I think are important. And the biggest one is that you can control the location for Kazuha's grouping. I do think Xian Yun is probably going to become a really useful character for relevant grouping. Like, it's going to be one of the things people really like about her. But you can't do that. And that is a big deal in Abyss when they keep on setting up abysses, like even things like Chamber 11. Someone like Kazuha was so nice at making like Chamber 11 things much easier because they set up things where like there's a defense monolith in the middle, right? And then they spawn crab here, crab here, crab here, whopper flower, whopper flower, whopper flower all around, and like you can abuse like Kazuha to stand in specific locations and group them together. Xian Yun, the way that her grouping works, which I'll get into the secondary downside, but is she jumps up in the air and then is auto-targeting, right? So she would auto-target one of these crabs within her range, and the grouping would be centered upon the crab, right? So it'd be as if I was only targeting this crab and it pulls them together. It's still nice. It's still grouping. It's good that she has it, but it's a little bit... It's not the same level of control that Kazuha has. So I think Kazuha is going to remain, you know, the premier grouper, to be clear. And the other interesting thing is do you see like the animation for Kazuha's grouping? And I think that lasts like 2 or 3 seconds or so. So that means that like I see relatively often, right? You have situations where like you might not get an enemy pulled in with the initial vortex that Kazuha grabs, but that sustained like 3-second pull might pull in the enemy after. Let's see if I can like maybe do it. Well, no, I can't because these things just run away from me. But you know, you'll have a helichurl or something that walks into like near the range of the vortex as it's like still on the field for a few seconds. And that is relevant because Xianyun does not have that. Her vortex does not have this like on-field presence that pulls enemies after it initially does the pulling. It only does like the initial pulling like Kazuha does with his initial group. There's no sustained vortex that happens after Kazuha plunges, for example. And that's a big difference too, because yeah, it's I don't know. A big difference is going to be situational, to be clear. Like, it's going to be useful grouping to have. I just want to emphasize this because Homchcat, when they released the data for her, like showed that yeah, she has a stronger grouping pull than Kazuha's hold skill, but that doesn't mean it's more useful because there's more nuance than just the strength, right? It is kind of all I'm trying to point out here. And this isn't even getting into the last thing. So the notable thing basically with Xian Yun then with her grouping is yes, it's stronger. The main thing to keep in mind then is that it's going to auto-target, so you can't control the location. And then secondly, it doesn't have any sustained pulling, so it's not going to pull something in that doesn't get hit. It's only going to pull the enemies that get hit initially, right? So it's only going to be like this initial pull that happens with Kazuha. That's basically what Xian Yun's grouping is, but slightly stronger. So it has decent range on it, on its grouping because of the strength of it, but it does not have any like overtime grouping. It's a little bit weird. It's different. It was initially described by one leaker as like Sucrose's skill, and it is not like Sucrose's skill. Sucrose's skill has basically no grouping. She has decent grouping, and I like it. So Sucrose E is like much worse. It's much more like the initial grouping is much more like Kazuha's hold than anything else. But it doesn't do that sustained vortex that happens after Kazuha plunges or anything. That's the biggest key difference. And the other difference is that she takes field time to do it. So, you know, like you know how Yai and a lot of people like Jeff like to shit on Yai because of the godforsaken problem of having to press E 3 times. To be clear, I enjoy Yai. So I'm biased for Yai. He's biased against someone like Yai. You have to use 3 E's to be able to get the vortex. So that clause in Cloud Retainer's passive says that she has to jump up in the air 3 times and then she plunges. So if you see any of the footage where she jumps up 3 times and then plunges, you only get the vortex when you do the 3 jumps. You can also just do, 1 E and then plunge. Or you can do 2 E's and then plunge on Cloud Retainer. But you get less elemental particles. You get 3 elemental particles if you do 1 E plunge, 2 E plunge, and you get 5 elemental particles when you do 3 E plunge. By the way, one problem, I haven't actually seen footage of her generating particles, I don't think, But based on how usually elemental particle generation normally works, and the fact that it's tied to how many E's you do before you plunge, my presumption is the particle generation is after you hit. And part of like Xian Yun's problem, right? So like Kazuha, you could do this, and then swap, right? Xian Yun is going to take more field time as an animal support because of the 3E thing, right? And I don't think 3E is as much of a problem on Yai because she's a DPS unit. It makes sense to spend a little bit of extra time on her if you can afford it. It's a balancing thing that means, you know, Yai is not going to be perfect for every single team, but, you know, it's just a part of the unit, like, requirement to deal damage is her 3E. A supportive unit, generally speaking, you know, if you want them to be more versatile, like, and again, she's an Anemo support being compared to the likes of Sucrose, Kazuha, who have very short field time potentially, although Kazuha, when he uses burst, you know, he takes a lot longer because of his burst, and one of the things that can potentially make Sucrose better than Kazuha is the fact that she has less field time than Kazuha because of the burst. Anyways, Cloud Retainer also has a burst animation. I think it's slightly faster than Kazuha's burst. I don't know the exact times though. Point is, field time is going to be relatively long on Cloud Retainer to be able to use her for grouping especially, and to get more particles out of her. And because of the fact that you get that you can spend relatively short field time if you just do E plunge on her. It's very easy to just, you know, jump, plunge. It's fairly fast. It's like going to be similar speed to Kazuha's just hold, tap skill and then plunge. It's fundamentally pretty similar time. The problem is it's only 3 particles, right? And she has a 12-second cooldown on her skill. Kazuha has like a 6-second cooldown on his. I have C1, but I think Kazuha has a 6-second cooldown on his skill, on his tap skill. So Kazuha generates, I think, the same amount of energy with his tap skill as she does. And her energy needs, I think, are the main thing I really would like to see change about her. I killed everything nearby here. Crap. Well, there's one. Let's see how much we generate. I don't remember if he generates 2 or 3 on his tap skill. It might be RNG. Supports having long field time can be annoying, especially trying to set up Kazuha and Nahida on a Lisa team is pretty annoying. Yeah, exactly. Yep, 3 particles. Okay, we'll do another skill though. See if it's RNG. 3 particles. Okay, I think it's always 3. So, you know, Kazuha can use a skill multiple times in rotation, right? And he can also use a hold skill to get some more particles. Xian Yun, if you want grouping, you have to use the 3E skill, the longer field time one. And if you want more particles, you have to use the 3E one. You have to do 3 E's for 5 particles, and it's the same cooldown regardless. It's the same 12-second cooldown regardless, right? Even Kazuha on a hold skill can oftentimes use 2 hold skills. Like, her energy requirements, while she has a lower burst cost, or no, she has a higher burst cost. I thought Kazuha had an 80 burst cost for some godforsaken reason. So, anyways, like, Kazuha's ER requirements are not super low. And she has a higher burst cost than Kazuha, and worse energy generation, right? And she's an Anemo, so often she's gonna be solo Anemo. So, like, I don't like that. That's really a bummer. She's got like the Baiju problem, but honestly worse. Like, I honestly think she's gonna have worse energy problems than Baiju, because, well, to be clear, Baiju has really bad energy problems in some teams because that he can only use 1 E per rotation. Let's say if you're using it with Sino, his energy problems with Sino are just kind of awful. Because you generally just do E into burst into staying on field with Sino a long time. Like, he has a higher energy cost than someone like Cloud Retainer, but he at least normally has the ability to do 2 skills per rotation. Prototype Amber also exists for Cloud Retainer, as it does for Baiju, but Baiju at least, you know, gets more inherent benefit from being on Prototype Amber because he has like HP scaling, buffing, and whatever, and healing. Cloud Retainer has attack scaling, healing. So I still think Prototype Amber is going to be genuinely a good option for Cloud Retainer, but most of the time this character is going to be a fav for like everyone. And okay, now you're putting the onus to have some more crit stats on her, and like, ugh. And more crit stats means prioritizing potentially a crit rate circlet over an attack circlet, which means less plunge buff, which means less healing. And like, she's very energy hungry. Is my point. And like comparing to like Jean, as far as her healing goes, let's go back to the screen here. As far as her healing goes, her healing is tied to her burst, right? So again, energy needs, and her burst is very important. You also need her burst for her buff, for her plunging buff. I haven't even properly explained her kit, but at level, we're going to level 9. 209% at level 9 plus 1566, 63% plus 469 at plus continuous healing. The notable thing, this is less healing as far as like multipliers go than Jean. She does have a higher base attack. Oh, by the way, speaking of, Gaming has the highest base attack for any 4-star in the game, and I think one of the higher base attacks in the game in general. So, thank God. Like, holy crap, they gave a character attack percent ascension and didn't gimp their freaking base attack. Like, what the heck? He has like twice the base attack that Charlotte has. Both are attack scaling characters. Anyways, sorry. So she's attack scaling, right? So she's comparable to Jean as like the animal healer front, but she heals all team members, right? So it specifically says heals all nearby team members based on her attack, and then summons a blah blah blah, and this blah 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 also follows the active character and periodically heals all nearby characters. Also, you know, thank God, like it's so goddamn rare. So rare for hopefully the bleep button worked, because I didn't actually swear there. It probably sounded really dumb if I didn't actually bleep. Anyways, they actually put an interval in here. Like, oh my God, good Lord. Like, so many characters in this game have like interval based abilities, and they don't put the interval in the kit. And it's like no, it's secret information you have to look up online. Like, F off, just put your freaking intervals in game. Like, I get why they don't put ICD particle generation stuff in game. It's fine. It's fine that you don't put those in game, because it's like getting into the technical weeds of things, even though it's really important on judging a character. Like, it is really important, but it's like complicated in a level that I understand why you don't just directly show that. But intervals for abilities, thank you. I hope this is the trend moving forward. Please, for the love of everything, miHoYo, continue putting intervals in your character descriptions, like abilities. It's so annoying that they don't. It's one of the main things that made Farina like so freaking awful to try to like think about in her beta. It's just no intervals. So she has attack ascension, by the way, on Xian Yun, for what it's worth. Again, you know, she gives a buff based on her attack, so and she heals based on attack, so it makes more sense for her to have attack ascension rather than whatever ascension, like the animal damage bonus or whatever, or healing bonus even. So, but yeah, if you compare this to Jean, browser window, where's my game? There we go. Compare this to Jean. It's a lot less healing, so she's interesting in the context with Farina. I'm going to talk about specifically because, you know, Jean is being used a lot with Farina, because Jean has the ability to, when you build her for healing, right, a 400% heal and then a very small continuous regeneration. And this continuous regeneration for Jean is only the active character. It's basically something that is not useless, because that additional healing on Jean can trigger Farina's passive like a bunch of times during Jean's burst, so it's actually it's stronger than people give it credit for with Jean. But the big thing is that her burst is like a one-tap heal. So if you go down to 50% HP with Farina's summons draining in the first rotation, you don't use your Jean burst in the first rotation. Normally, when you're using Jean and Farina together, you let the team drain down to 50% HP in the first rotation, and then the second rotation, you do Farina's burst again, and then start with Jean burst, and that basically of most teammates, once you build Jean properly, like this Jean build has R5 Aminoma, 2100 attack. I think her Jean's heals for something in the neighborhood, and this is like with a healing bonus circuit and everything on VV. I think this build on Jean heals something in the neighborhood of 20,000 health or something. I had to let me do the math quick. We're doing a math stream. Do 400% is at level 8. So not directly compared to the level 9 that I showed before, but it's close enough, right? Oops, I just wrapped my cord around my microphone. You might have heard that. If you did, I'm sorry. So it's 402, no, not 402, 4.02 times times 2100 attack, and plus 2,880. Okay, 20,000 was an overestimate. But she does. I don't even have my gene fully ascended, so I think what is her healing bonus at? She's at 52% healing bonus. Actually, maybe it wasn't a misestimate. And sometimes you have some Frina like buff from her fanfare going still. Depends on when exactly you use her burst again and whatnot. But I'm not gonna factor in any Frina healing bonus because we're just gonna do like worst case scenarios if you're doing it immediately after her burst, which oftentimes you are. So times 1.52. Oh, I did that wrong. Whoops. So 11,300 times 1.52 is 17,000 HP. That Frina, that Gene 1 tap heals, right? And being that Frina drains to 50% HP, that means that's enough to full heal any character at 50% HP, that up to like the 35,000 HP mark, right? And then from there, usually Frina's passive will take care of the rest. That's what makes Jean a really good healer, is because you just got to be smart with it. The advantage with Cloud Retainer is that she's a little bit more brainless. Is probably what it, like, not brainless and like, oh, she's only for dumb people, but easier to use in that you just don't have to think about like the timing situation. So let me go back. So her healing, right, is 2.5 seconds with 16-second duration. So if you divide that out, that's going to be a whopping 6 heals of her periodic healing. So let's assume, you know, my estimates have Xian Yun with like an energy build on Fav at around 2,500 attack is my guess. In practice, that might be slightly different. It depends on the artifacts you have, blah blah blah, and depends on the set you put on her. But you're not usually using a healing bonus circlet on Xian Yun, most likely. You can. Like, I might use a healing bonus circlet on Xian Yun, specifically for Frina. But I'm gonna assume, like, you're using Xian Yun for her plunging damage buff, right? To compare her healing to Jean. So we're gonna say 2,500 attack. And, because that's just calcs I've done before off stream. Times this 202.09, right? And then plus 1566. This one I am going to multiply by Frina's bonus, though, because Frina will give you, you know, healing bonus over time, and a lot of this healing is over time, right? And you don't have, because of the fact that you don't have to, you know, worry about the fact that all of the healing comes in one tap. Instead, it's more just like sustained healing over time. You can kind of just use Xian Yun's burst more flexibly with Frina, so you can use it after Frina has drained a little bit, and therefore you get some healing bonus. So I'm going to multiply it by like 1.1. I'm going to assume she has at least 10% healing bonus, but as like a general average, right? So anyways, 6,000. I'm going to multiply it by 1.1 after I do the full thing. So 6,800 healing from her one tap, right? From activating her burst, that's 6,800 healing. That's a lot less than 17,000. To be clear, my Gene build is a pretty high investment build. Like, my Gene build has attack percent timepiece, attack percent goblet, and healing bonus circlet with attack percent weapon, and I have 195 ER still with Aminoma. Like, it's a situation that it's a high investment Gene build compared to potentially a lower investment Xian Yun build. Just as a disclaimer. So anyways, on the 62, so 0.627 times 2,500, and then plus 469. So that is 2k healing for her continuous healing, and that's 2.5 seconds is inner healing interval. So times 6. Actually, it might be 7. It's probably 7 because there's, well, I don't know. I haven't seen her healing interval. Sometimes when you have continuous healing like this, there might be a tick that happens immediately, and then you have the every 2.5 seconds, so it's either 6 or 7. Let's be nice and assume 7. So that's 14,000 sustained healing. Actually, honestly, I don't think it is. I'm gonna do worst case scenario. Never mind. Taking back my words. Let's skip those ads, YouTube. YouTube wanted to automatically insert ads. No, I say. So anyways, 2,000 times 6 is 12,000, so plus the 6,791, right, is 19,000 healing over time. So if you compare that to Jean, it's actually pretty good, right? It's fine. She has a similar-ish amount of healing, but built on a less healing focused build.
Wherever in this world
It's just over time.
I carry memories of
And
my home.
depending on how much you focus in the build,
It's the
it might
last link I have
vary a
to
little
the
bit.
land of my birth.
And depending on how much energy you need on your Xian Yun, depending on what team you have her in, it's like, it's going to vary. There will be reason to put healing bonus circlet on her potentially, depending on what team you have her in with Farina. She's going to give you less damage bonus. She's not going to give you as much damage bonus with Farina as fast as Jean does, because right, Jean is a one-tap heal everything. You immediately get like the 200 stacks on fanfare. This you get fanfare generation that's more overtime, and that's just a different form of healing that has its own benefits and downsides in some ways. So that's kind of all. She's just weird in that you're not going to necessarily build her fully for healing, whereas you kind of do for Jean, right? Jean was finally able to shine with Farina, but power crept again. I don't think she was. This is kind of my point, though. Right? My point is that Jean has relevant healing, and like Jean will give you more damage percent bonus faster, and that's better for Farina in some ways. If you don't care about the grouping, right, and you don't care about the plunging damage bonus, there's not much reason to use Xian Yun over Jean, right? And Jean actively might be better, even if you want the grouping from Xian Yun with Farina and have both as an option.
Scenery is wonderful.
Scenery is wonderful.
Surely enough to convince
Jean
everyone.
might still be better because of her lower field times requirements, right? and a high investment Jean is still easier to build than a high investment Xian Yun because of energy requirements. So, anyways. C4 Jean will be better than Xiao better for Xiao than C0 Xian Yun. No, so the problem with Jean C4 is here. Let me try to demonstrate it. So the problem with Jean C4 is that it's anti. I don't have Jean C4 to be clear, but you don't need Jean C4 to see the problem with Jean C4. So this isn't always a problem. It depends on the situation you're against, to be clear. But when the field created by her burst is out, all opponents have their animal res decreased by 40%. This requires the opponents to be in Jean's field, right? And let's get our burst back here. By the way, you're gonna see how overpowered freaking Amenoma is here. Watch. So this is why I spent all my builds on Amenoma. I spent all 5 sword builds I have for Amenoma. And anyways. Alright. So I have okay, oh shoot. I don't think they're gonna get pushed in the water, are they? Okay, I'm gonna wait for them to get up here. So they're gonna get pushed away basically. And they're not gonna come towards me, are they? Please, bro. Why are they in the water? Okay, wait, there's some hilly trails over here, isn't there? What are Chevreuse' talent materials? You would think I would know this because I have farmed enough of them for double crowning her already on Polar only, but I forgot. Did I run out of the stacks? I ran out of the stacks on Eminem. Darn it. Oh man, I killed everything. Crap. Oh no, not you. I don't want to touch you. Bro, where is the Elytras? Where is their enemies? Why did I kill them all? You know what? I could probably just do my dailies or something. Now that I think about it. Boy. Alright. So, I guess we just use the slime. Oh no, there's slimes over here. Okay. Now I'm gonna get 3 stacks of Amenoma again just to show you how nice Amenoma is on her. Alright. So watch. Well, they died. Okay. Well, I guess this was a terrible demonstration. They didn't get pushed away. But okay, well actually there's the problem of her pushing enemies away, right? So you have circle impact problems of being pushed away, but then also to get energy back on her, you need to use her skill, right? So like, see how much energy she got back, by the way, after activation. This freaking weapon. So right, she uses her skill, she pushes enemies away, and you gotta use her skill to get energy up on her, so, like, and to swirl. You know, she anti-groups, is the point. If you're anti-grouping, an ability that requires an ability that gives you a buff by requiring the enemies to be within the field when they are getting pushed out of the field actively is a bit annoying. This is why like I don't like just this issue in general with Jean is why I don't like the Sunfire combo that much. It's just like, hey, cool, you can use Sunfire against bosses, I guess. But I don't want to have to think about that situational goofiness. It's kind of all it comes down to. So, yeah. Len has been a member for 5 months. Thanks, Len. Do you suck enemies with Xiao Plunge, with Xiao Yun on the team? So, I mean, Xiao Yun is going to group enemies once, right? Like, if you want to see how Xiao Yun's grouping is going to be with Xiao, it's going to be the same as if you use Kazuha, basically, right? If you group enemies up with Kazuha,
Want me to come along?
then they're going to... Let's go do a daily or something. If you group enemies up with Kazuha, they're going to be grouped once, and then you switch to Xiao, and they're going to get pushed apart by Xiao, right? So that's like it's the grouping is not sustained over time. Xiao Yun does not have any off-field grouping. She just has one instance of grouping that happens when you do triple E and then hit with her skill. So and wham. And a blam. And a blam. Yeah. this sword. I love this. It was so worth it. It's so worth it spending a little billets. To be clear, I don't necessarily recommend it unless you're in my situation. Like, I'm in a situation where, like, you know, I have all the swords. So, it was, like, fine for me to spend a bunch of billets on it. But honestly, I maybe should have, you know, I didn't want I don't want to use my Dream Solvents to convert it, so it was the Northlander billets for this sword, right? I plan to try to get R5 of Sapwood Blade eventually because this weapon is disgustingly strong if you abuse it. Like 120 EM bonus is really good at R5. 60 EM is not bad at an R1 on many teams. Like you can turn Bennett into on an instructor's build. Bennett can be a team member who can buff the whole team's EM by 120 with 4-piece instructors, but then with Sapwood Blade, with the leaf you pick up, you can buff another character's EM by 120 with R5 Sapwood Blade. And so if you're doing something like I do with Hybrid Raiden, that is a 240 elemental mastery buff, which is a very, very big damage buff for all of the damage she's dealing. So anyways, but I only have, I think, 2 sword builds right now. I'm probably not going to bother until I get... Oh my god, where's the thing? Yeah, I have 2 sword billets. I'm probably not going to bother making R5 of that until I get 2 more sword billets, realistically. Also got my bow billets. God, that weapon is disgusting when used right. Indeed it is. Okay. So yeah, no off-field sucking ability, sadly. I think Sucrose is honestly still probably the best off-field grouper, realistically. Let's go back here quick. So let me actually explain her overall kit, just because it probably doesn't seem very cohesive based on how I've described it so far. But basically, she's meant as a plunge buffer. Like she does some swirling and she does some plunge buffing. That's basically what Cloud Retainer is. And so her skill is this big old wall of text. Basically, you use her E, and as I described it 3 times, you can do E plunge. That's this first leap. She does do damage on her activation, but as far as I'm aware, this does not swirl. To swirl, you have to do a plunge. And also you don't get energy on activation, right? So you activate, she jumps up in the air, and then you have to plunge with a normal attack, right? So you do E plunge, kind of like Kazuha, and like this E plunge is, again, short duration, but the cooldown is 12 seconds. The only time she does have this thing, by the way, that says, oh, if the Drift Cloud wave was not used during a blah, 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 the cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds. And that seems cool, right? Because it's like, oh, you could reduce her cooldown to 9 seconds. Theoretically, that means you could do 2 skills per rotation, right? Except no, because the only time you get the cooldown reduction is when you activate her skill and then don't do the plunge, which means you're not getting any energy anyways. So they do you the nice of like, oh, you didn't use the skill at all? You didn't get any energy from the skill or any swirl from it? Well, we'll be nice to you, and you get a 9-second cooldown. That's what this says. That's stupid as crap, in my opinion. I really wish, like, she just had, like, 9-second or 10-second cooldown, to be completely honest. Or these different leaps should have separate cooldowns, in my opinion, particularly in conjunction with the fact that
It's time to move on.
first leap, second leap, and then plunge gives only 2 energy particles, right? So realistically, because of the energy issues, you're going to have to triple E plunge most of the time, and you might want to anyways because of the grouping that I've talked about. So yeah, I think you get the point. Her skill is the main thing you can see in her footage that like gives her a flashy gimmick, but it can actively be a bad thing having your supportive animal unit have so much field time. The grouping is really nice. I think I will enjoy that about her, but it's ultimately potentially a pretty problematic aspect of her kit is her energy cost being 70 and her energy generation not being very good. Like in most rotations, you're only going to use one skill. There's some rotations where you could, use 2 skills per rotation in 24-second rotation teams, and those would mostly be teams that are just like teams that don't have consistent rotations anyways, which with Dendro teams existing, there's a lot of those teams. There's a surprisingly high amount of them. It's just that like it restricts her utility a lot, right? Like you want an Animo unit for what Animo is good at to be versatile, and she's not. And this is part of the reason. And it's just going to make her energy annoying as heck, and I hope they change it. They either need to like change the cooldown, change it so that the different cooldowns for the different leaps, for example, or change just the energy generation that you get from the different things. Like if she started having 5 particles on E plunge, I would have slightly less of an issue. It'd still be a little bit problematic energy wise, but it'd be more deal withable. But having to get 5 particles by doing triple E plunge is going to be pretty awkward in some teams. Yeah, I don't know. It's
we have work to do.
Jean, shush. Okay, whatever. We're just gonna deal with Jean. I'm almost done. Her burst is where she's actually interesting. So I already talked about the healing for her burst, and it's all team healing, which is good. We don't have many all team healers, and we also don't really have. She might, off the top of my head, I don't even know who does like any healing. Like there's a lot of characters that do a little bit of sustained healing to like your active character in some form or another. But she's does all team healing through multiple instances over time, right? And like I said, it's decent healing, but how decent the healing will be exactly will depend on how much you spec into her passive over here. But anyways, so when you use her burst, again, 70 costs, again, there's energy. Continuously follows the active character. She sounds like a little drone-looking bird, swan thing, crane, whatever you call it. And yeah, it follows you. Starts with 8 stacks of adept, blah, blah, blah. And when it is active, nearby characters have their jump height increase. So basically you can jump higher 8 times. And then when the active character completes a plunging attack, this will consume 1 stack. So again, 8 instances. You can only do it 8 times, which is fine for how long it takes you to do a plunge. I think it's not that crazy of a limit. But notably, this is a limit also on how many times her buff can apply, because her buff requires having stacks of this, which means you only get 8 times of her buff. Like that's the functional limit on her buff is 8 times her buff because of that. And Kokomi burst, yeah, but Kokomi requires being on field, right? She doesn't require being off field. I should have specified that. So for her sustained healing to the whole team. Yeah. So anyways, it does this coordinated attack. So when the active character completes a plunging attack, it deals animo damage, and so that's 8 instances of animo damage. But it has standard ICD, and so standard ICD is 2.5 seconds, right, or 3 hits. You're not going to hit 3 hits, obviously. So basically, the timer rule is going to take effect, which realistically means that this applies animo 4 times. And this could be useful for things, a number of things actually. That this interesting off-field animo attack. Now you're not going to get VV from off-field, right? Because VV. Let me put the window away. VV, just in case anyone doesn't remember, requires the character to be on field. It doesn't say when swirl happens off field. No, you have to swirl from off field, or sorry, from on field with your animals, which it's not important for that. But swirl is still strong, and swirl can reduce auras on enemies, and in particular, the main use is Bennett and Nahida create a really strong burning aura that stays on enemies. and it can be, well, it's raining now. God, of course, it's raining right now. But you know, the burning aura on enemies is when you're using teams with Nahida and Bennett. This is an interaction that I really like, which you can't even see it because, yeah, reasons. But normally, you know, it would put a pyro aura on them, and then they'd start taking it down with ticks of burning damage. And I really like this interaction. I use this combo a lot for that reason. But sometimes it can be annoying in that you have too much pyro aura, and having some extra coordinated attacks of Animo could potentially get rid of some of that pyro aura, so that you could do other reactions and have like more of other reactions, which could improve the team, which is interesting. I really like that aspect to her kit. I think it's one of the more underrated things about her kit that not a ton of people like notice that much right now, and it's just one of those unique things that like no other character can really do that in the same way, particularly in the way that you can control, right? Because it's triggered specifically off of you, you know, doing the plunge attack, and that means you know when it's going to happen, and that's a big deal. So it's one of the it's a niche thing about her. Again, like kind of everything about her is niche, but it's still, again, like this all adds up to enough that like I'm going to want her as a tool, essentially, to use as a tool, as a tool in my toolbox to use. Cloud Retainer's a tool. That's my verdict. No. Anyways, that's everything for her burst. The notable thing with the plunging. So if we go to, we gotta go find that local legend here. Let me bring my chat back up. Yeah, it can be an off-field swirl, which can also, right, if you're in an AoE situation, an off-field swirl can also, like, you know, if you're swirling pyro, that can swirl pyro onto other enemies on top of reducing the aura from one enemy, because swirl does consume aura, right? But it consumes aura in exchange for putting aura on other enemies. And okay, so the local legend was supposedly over here somewhere, I think. Oh yes, the new healing set. Oh yeah. I should talk about that. So, being that Xian Yun has a lot of field time requirements, her kit synergizes really well with this artifact set. Which, good lord. I'm not going to get into trying to explain this that much. Basically, it's a flat damage bonus. Oh, I didn't even explain her passive. Frick. So, her passive, right, is a flat damage bonus. This is a big part of why I don't necessarily love her. I mentioned this earlier, very early on in the stream. Basically, when you have her buff active, her burst active, sorry, you have the 8 stacks, right? So you can do 8 plunges, which means 8 instances of this buff. Nearby active characters' plunging attacks, shockwave damage will be increased by 170% of Xian Yun's attack. This is a flat damage buff. The maximum damage increase achieved this way is 8,500. This is very hard to get to. So if you divide that out, so, you know, like I think I mentioned before, like I think a realistic attack stat, considering her ER needs, is going to be probably around 2,500. Is a relatively decent investment with a fab build on Xian Yun. So 2,500 times 1.7 is 4,200. Right, that's half of what you need. You need a 5k. You need a 5k attack Xian Yun to be able to get this. And as far as I'm aware, this doesn't like snapshot or anything. It's gonna dynamically calculate the buff based on what Xian Yun's attack is when you deal the damage. So that means, you know, she doesn't snapshot Bennett's attack or anything when she casts her burst, and always use that. That could be a way where you could actually realistically hit this 8,500 limit. But otherwise, like, it's not going to be realistically possible that you hit the 8,500. It is realistic that you hit like 3k. I think 3,000 is a realistic estimate. So at 3,000 attack times 85 or times 170 times 1.7 is a 5,100 flat damage bonus. That is a big flat damage bonus. This is the biggest flat damage bonus we have in the game. The problem is, if you saw this line here, each plunging attack instance can only apply this increased damage effect to a single opponent, and then you can trigger it at once every 0.4 seconds. Now, like this flat damage bonus is going to make you see noticeably higher numbers, right? If we do let's do some maths here. That's pretty simple, right? So I'm going to use Yai as an example just because I think I'm actually going to do plunging Yai shenanigans. So Yai's high plunge multiplier is 281%. So we're going to assume not Bennett because I just don't feel like assuming Bennett. So 281% times, and this is with the crowned Yai, right? 281% times 2200 is the baseline multiplier. So 2200 times 2.81, that's 6,180. That's the baseline that's then multiplied by Yai's damage bonus that she has going on, whether it be from her artifacts or externally from the likes of Frina or whatever else. And then it's multiplied by her crit if she crits. And then it's also multiplied by like enemy resistances. So a Yai plunge right now, a high plunge would be the 280%. So 2200 times 280% times, let's say I'm using Frina, and let's just be like, actually let's assume I'm using Kazuha because Kazuha's a bit easier. What does Kazuha even give at max? I think I would know this, but I just haven't bothered. What is the scaling? It's 0.04%. I thought 0.04. I have 1001 EM Kazuha. That's 40%. So 40% damage bonus. And then I have, 46% damage bonus from her goblet. So we'll say 86%, right? So 2200 times 2.81, and then times the for damage bonus you do 1 plus the damage bonus you have, so that's times 1.86, and then times her crit, assuming I'm critting, is 223 crit damage, so that's times 3.23. So that is 37,000, but then enemy resistances will depend on, so because we're factoring Kazuha, this is not exactly correct, but my simple estimate, if you're ignoring the fact that VV exists, and it depends on level, enemy resistances and enemy defense, divide your number by 2. The end result I should see from a plunge with Yai with about 86% damage bonus in this case is 18,570, right? And that's using a baseline of the 280% multiplier times her attack is about 2,800, I believe it said it was, right? Or no, sorry, not 2,800. It was 6,700 or something. A 3K attack Xian Yun, right, times 1.7 is an additional 5,100 flat bonus, right? So that's compare that 5,100 flat to the 6,700 baseline. This is going to like double the plunge damage I would see from Yai, right? So the calculation here would then be, let's see, I had this to 5,100. So this is all the same damage percent, same multiplier, but times 1.86 times 3.23 divided by 2, so that'd be a 46,000 damage plunge by my maths. That's without factoring in any VV or anything. So it quite literally, in like Yai's case, basically doubles doubles the plunge number that you can see, which is big, but it's a single target. And for what it's worth, I personally find that, like, I gotta go walk around and see if I can find this local legend. I personally find that single target buffs, as nice as they are, what is the value of a single target buff? And being that Abyss, right, Genshin's meta is context dependent on the Abyss running at any given time. There is usually not entirely Abysses that are single target situations like the current Abyss, if we're being honest. And that means that a buff that only applies to single target doesn't scale with most of the hard content that MiHoYo has to offer for Genshin. So the limit on that damage bonus, while it makes you see a lot bigger number, is that additional, 20,000 damage you gave my plunge damage. Why did those doors just open? That was very weird. Okay, this is clearly the wrong location for this creature. That additional damage bonus is limited to 8 plunges, right? And that's all it's doing. It's in single target, in AoE, it's only ever giving that much damage bonus. And my bigger frustration with it is, because it only applies to one opponent, it's also going to unevenly kill things, right? So if I hit 2 Hilly Trails at once with a plunge on Yai with Xian Yun, then the situation that you might see happen, like we have the Kairagi in the Abyss. Kairagi, they love putting Kairagi in the Abyss, right? And Kairagi specifically have a mechanic that you want to kill them at the same time. And now they have a buff that applies specifically, it specifically says this buff only applies to a single target. So if you're like, let's say you're plunging with Xiao, right? Xiao will have his plunge, you'll see a really big plunge damage number from Xiao with Xian Yun. Especially because his own inherent plunge damage bonus will multiply the flat damage bonus even more. But if you hit 2 Kairagi at the same time, right, you'll see one Kairagi gets, say, 40k damage, and the other Kairagi takes, and you can get higher than 40k at a baseline to be Killer Xiao, but why is this chest not opening it? Is it just the slime? Is it really just this? Okay, I don't care about this chest. So you kill the, you're doing like, you know, say 60k, 70k, whatever. Let's just say 60k. Say you're doing 60k plunge damage to one Kairagi, and then you're doing 40k to the other one. You're increasing the variance in the amount of damage you're dealing to either, and obviously like your crit rate causes variance too. But that's something you can solve. You can solve that by having higher crit, and increasing your consistency. You can't change the fact that her buff only applies to one enemy. And that means that you're... Oh, I think that's where the thing is. I'm guessing. That means when applying to only one enemy, you're going to have a situation where, like, Xian Yun's buff applied to the Kairagi, like, it's a 50% chance you're hitting 2 Kairagi, and which one is it going to apply to? It might just cause you to kill one of them way faster than the other. A lot. And they really like putting those enemies in. And that my point with this is that, like, that might make Xian Yun's buff actively frustrating in those situations. Because the mechanic of the enemy is trying to incentivize you to kill them both at the same time, but then you have a buff that you can't control how it applies to what enemy, other than purposely avoiding hitting one of them. And now you're in a situation where you're trying to take advantage of Xiao's AoE damage, but you have a buff that's applying to only one enemy, which means you're killing them at different times, and you can't like properly engage with the enemy mechanics, and you're causing yourself extra time to clear the abyss because of the fact that you had more damage to one enemy than the other. Like, it's so dumb, in my opinion. And they could reconfigure this, to be clear. So I think it's not here. Other waypoint above the one for the local legend, brown circle of grass next to it. All right, sweet. Oh, right there. Okay, sweet. Jumpy boy. Oops. Now, annoying thing. It would be really nice to just slot in Zhongli to this team. To a team, sorry, to be able to test this. So if you have Zhongli in particular, this enemy is really nice for being able to try to test out what Xian Yun could be useful for. Because you could just test it at Zhongli. Zhongli can tank the damage for you from this butthole. And then you won't get interrupted, right? And then you can try to like test out like plunge combos with the jumping damage bonus here. Is my recommendation. For what it's worth, I will not really be able to test things, but notable thing I want to point out is that I don't know if the speed will be necessarily exactly the same. I'd have to go double check like the league footage. But the general height is about the same, right? So you can kind of practice. Is the point? Now, let's not die. Alright, so you can practice plunge combos if you have any idea for things. One thing you might have seen is I've seen like footage of people doing a plunge Hu Tao combo, which is particularly interesting with like a C0 Hu Tao, right? So you could use Xian Yun's plunging damage bonus in this team by doing, I believe the combo is doing the normal N2 charge. So normally Hu Tao, right, you do jump cancels to cancel her charge attack animation. So you do N2 normal attacks. Oh my god, Jesus Christ. Let's just run away from him for a second. So Hu Tao you do... And now we're in the red area. Of course we are. God freaking dang it. Love the edge of the map dimming your home screen. Hydro Vision has some war flashbacks. Yeah. Blah blah blah. Okay. So yeah, you do like 2 normal attacks and then you jump to cancel the animation on Hu Tao. With Xian Yun, that jump would be a plunge, right? and then you plunge, and blam, you get, you know, I don't know what Hu Tao's multiplier. Can I see multipliers in the character archive here? And then you get Hu Tao's really big multiplier, right? So okay, it's not that much bigger at level 1, obviously, but this would scale up more with a higher level. And being that you're already leveling this talent, right, for Hu Tao's charge attack, it's just a higher multiplier than a charge attack that you can vape. And notably, every character's charge attack, I don't think I said this yet, every character's plunge attack in the game currently has no ICD, which means, particularly for characters that give themselves an infusion on their normal attacks, you can use the plunging, right? So the 8 plunges that Xian Yun can give you, you could use that plunge to guarantee you're getting, you know, a reaction every single time you plunge. Will this be better than doing, you know, C1 Hu Tao dash cancels? No, but I think it is better from what I've seen from people that have done some calcs and the video I've seen testing against this local legend here. It should be more damage than a C0 Hu Tao jump cancel combo, which is cool. That's really cool. But it's still pretty niche, right? Like, it's a really specific use case, and it's still, again, like, it's a more fragile version of the Hu Tao team. Although with a healer going on, it probably isn't that much of an issue. But the idea would be you have Frina, Xian Yun, a second Hydro, which could be either, you know, Yelan if you want more damage, or Xingqiu if you want more defensive utility, for example, and then of course Hu Tao herself. If you're using an animal, you're using Xian Yun to swirl Hydro most likely. You're not going to be able to swirl Pyro unless you have a second Pyro on the team, which you could maybe do, but like Farina's probably not going to be enough Pyro or Hydro alone. Anyways, you have the potential to do it, and with Farina, the notable thing is like you can put Mara Shosei, right? So with conjunction of Farina's buff, Mara Shosei, you can get some really big Hu Tao damage, is the general idea. It's compelling enough that when Hu Tao reruns, assuming I have Xian Yun, I might try to get a C0 Hu Tao, right? I decided to skip on getting C0 Hu Tao because I just like didn't care for... I like C1 Hu Tao's gameplay. I don't care for C0 Hu Tao's normal gameplay. But with Xian Yun, I think it seems pretty fun. Shush. Can you me to do that plunge check? Oh, so... Oh boy. See, this is... Oh man, I should have known this stream was not going to be short. I do have a cutoff for this stream. I have to like be gone in like an hour. Short video. Screw me. So if we go through the characters that can be relevant for the plunging, you can't do the tech with bow characters because they can't get an infusion, right? Because they all do their charge attack stuff, but their plunging attacks are always physical damage. So outside of physical plunge stupidity, which is, you know, it's a thing you could technically do if you want, but like you're not going to get Dendro damage out of Tignari's 140% plunge multiplier. It's always going to be physical damage, and there's nothing you can do about that because they're bow characters. They can't be infused with a C6 Bennett infusion. But every other character in the game, that's not a bow character, right? Claymores notably have the highest multipliers for plunge multipliers, normally speaking. And by the way, there's the low/high plunge multipliers. I am pretty confident that Xian Yun's plunge damage buff should be, jump height buff will be enough to get you the high multiplier. So Claymores always have higher normal attack multipliers, and they have the highest plunge multipliers, and that's notable. One dumb idea, for example, like Dia is so bad that I think the best vape Dia team for C0 Dia, at least, because C0 Dia doesn't have meaningful enough HP scaling. I think I'm gonna try a vape Dia that uses C6 Bennett, right? So she's getting a pyro infusion. So a vape Dia that's getting a pyro infusion from C6 Bennett, and then if you're not, you know, if you if you're just focusing on vaping the plunges, right? If you don't care about Dia's burst, a big problem of Dia's kit goes away. You don't need to worry about energy recharge. So you can put like 4-piece Shimenawas or 4-piece Marashase Hunters with Farina, and you could do like Farina, Xian Yun, Bennett, Dia, and do a vape plunge Dia. And just ignore all the bad parts about Dia's kit. It's bad. The reason it's bad is because her plunge multipliers aren't even that good compared to other Claymore units. So it's like, the thing that's dumb about it is doing plunge Dia, while it might be the best way to do vape Dia, genuinely, sadly, it's not unique to Dia in any way, shape, or form. Like, you could do that with literally any Claymore user. And it is better to do that with other Claymores, most likely. Because they could have higher multipliers. So anyways, but I'm gonna do it anyways because it's another opportunity to make a Dia video for me. I can say I fixed Dia again by ignoring the entire kit. So anyways, whatever. I appreciate that I'm gonna be able to do dumb bull crap like that with Xian Yun. She's a perfect character for me. I just, like, she's so niche that, like, it's hard for me to, like, recommend her, like, compared to other animo units. She's not necessarily a better animo healer than Jean. She's better in some ways, but, like, not all in others, like for Frina, right? And she's not, like, the best grouper. I think Kaza was substantially better than that. She's not the best swirler because of the time she takes to swirl. And energy problems, and then other than that, what does she do that's unique? The plunge buff, and, like, the plunge buff on a meta level is, like, obviously useful for Xiao. It'll be useful for Dragon Strike to Luke. It seems like it's going to be useful for C0 Hu Tao, but not necessarily going to be, you know, your preferred team. It just might be a new option for her that's competent and theoretically a higher damage threshold than other C0 Hu Tao options, but at the sacrifice of, you know, some aspects of how you play Hu Tao. And how much you like that might depend, and it'll be probably a thing, but maybe not. And then, yeah, so, you know, Xiao, Gaming, because Gaming has plunge damage, right? So he takes advantage of the plunge damage bonus. And then Hu Tao, and then Dragon Strike to Luke. Dragon Strike to Luke will be not something... The reason Dragon Strike to Luke is a thing is because he can infuse himself with Pyro. And then he has a really high plunge multiplier. He's not technically the highest plunge multiplier in the game, but I think he's like second or third place to, like, Fremine with C3 Fremine can technically have higher plunge multipliers, but Fremine doesn't infuse himself, right? So Dragon Strike to Luke is going to be a actually real thing that you can pull off now without it being highly technical in trying to get, like, close to frame perfect jumps or hit lag cancel. I don't remember how exactly Dragon Strike works. Doesn't matter. But it'll be an actually real thing rather than a highly technical thing that exists but is unfeasible for most players. And that's cool. But, like, other than that, like, other than those 4 specific contexts, do I recommend it necessarily? Like, no. I talked about Yai earlier. Like, I want to try to demonstrate something with Yai against this local legend here if I can not die. Wherein I want to do, like, Yai. I don't know who I do for the 4th team. Well, I have to do Dendra, actually, right? But I could do Yai Quick Bloom, and Yai Quick Bloom, that could be because, you know, you have AoE damage that would always trigger a reaction. I could get more on-field electro application out of Yai in an AoE if I use Xian Yun's jump plunging with Yai, right? And so I could do, like, Nahida, Farina, Yai, Xian Yun, or I could do Farina, Yai, Xian Yun, and then forego Aggravate even, potentially, and just go, like, Fischl. I don't know, right? There's different combinations I can feasibly do. The idea with Fischl would be, being that I'm getting a reaction every time I'm doing a plunge, that's potentially extra Fischl A4s. That would be good damage. And I wouldn't necessarily have to use Farina in that team either, right? I don't have to make it a Quick Bloom team. I could just do, you know, Nahida, Fischl, Yai, and Xian Yun. And then that's just extra electro application, more aggravate damage, right? It actually might be the ideal variation of an on-field Yai, theoretically. But ideal enough to say you should get her? Like, I don't know. For like 5 stars are really expensive to get, right? That's the problem. And I don't know if she's relevant enough to necessarily shush. I hate this dude. I don't know if she's necessarily relevant. So that's kind of all my verdict comes down to. If we look at, like, the characters in the game where you might consider plunges relevant, I'm gonna try to go through this fairly quickly. The one thing I want to mention first is, like, you got infusion shenanigans. Like, I do think there's potential shenanigans to be had. I really wish Cloud Retainer was a polearm, man.
Adventure team.
Imagine all the fun things I could have done polearms only with this character. Good lord. I'd be having a heyday if Cloud Retainer was a polearm. Anyways, whatever. Let's choose a Catalyst. Catalyst is better for most players, to be clear. It's a better supportive like category for weapon types. Just thinking aloud for my dreams for polearms only. That will remain dreams. What was I saying? Having a stroke here. Oh, so I'm gonna go through like infusion shenanigans. The reason I thought about poems only is Candace, like Candace and Bennett and I think Xianyun. There's the external infusion characters that we have right now. Let me clear my throat again. And of them, I think C6 Bennett is by far the most notable one.
Benny's adventure team.
Mostly because of all the other useful things Bennett does. But Candace is interesting too, because extra Hydro application is good. You know, Hydro, good. Go figure. And doing a DPS Candace with Xian Yun is probably something I'm going to try. Actually, is that on my list of things I plan to... I have a list of like things I want to try with Xian Yun. And I think I put DPS Candace in there. Where's my thing? Yep. Oh, it's literally the first thing on the list. Lol. Okay, that's funny. So anyways, yeah, Candace. Only annoying thing is like C6 Candace does not work with Xian Yun because C6 Candace specifically says your character's triggering normal. Well, okay, C6 Candace does still work. I shouldn't say it doesn't work. It's just like it's annoying because if you want to do DPS Candace with it, it's a way to get more Hydro application, like consistent like vapes, for example, out of like, a forward vape out of DPS Candace. But like, okay, then you can't trigger C6 because you're using her on field, which is dumb. And then if you're using her infusion for another character, you can trigger the C6. You gotta do normal attacks in, but normally you're gonna do normal attacks anyways, because basically you're gonna be using Xian Yun properly. You're almost always gonna have to do normal attacks, so I guess it's not really a problem now that I think about it. Basically, see the delay in jumping when you die. The delay in jumping after you land, right? It is a delay. What you can do is you can jump, normal attack, normal attack, normal attack, right? Normal attacks cancel the animation. We can't kill the thing. Normal attacks cancel the animation is something you're gonna have to do. So you can still trigger CC's Candace, I guess. So my complaint is invalid. Yeah, like, how useful will that actually be? It'll be useful if you're like me, you know, on my polearm only account where I need Candace as my only Hydro. And so by saying you're like me, not that you're like me and that you have a polearm only account, but in that, like, you just like Candace so much and you want more use for her, you can easily think of creative uses that potentially it could be good for. It's certainly not a bad thing to have more ability to do with things with external infusions. And external infusions are one of my favorite things in the game. It's part of why I like Candace so much. She has just fun creative utility by nature of infusing any melee character with a Hydro infusion. But realistically, Pyro infusion is going to be stronger. So if you
Where did that come from?
want to like try to do shenanigans with Xian Yun, the number one enabler for shenanigans with Xian Yun is 100% going to be C6 Bennett. Like being able to turn any melee user to have AoE pyro damage with a potentially strong plunge multiplier means
Benny's adventure team.
you can get big vapes, means you can use them as a AoE Burgeon trigger. Like I honestly think Xian Yun plus C6 Bennett plus any melee character is going to be a... Like, so it'd be like Xian Yun, C6 Bennett. Wait, I was going to list Nahida and Freena there, but I ran out of team slots.
Where did that come
Bennett would have to be basically... okay. This doesn't work as well. There's shenanigans. That's my point. So I'm not going to get too in depth of the shenanigans. Point is, you can do shenanigans with it. But I'm going to skip over any character that doesn't infuse themselves with any pyro or whatever, or have their own default element by being a catalyst user, because Like, Kaya is only relevant in the with his plunge attacks. I mean, again, you can do physical damage if you want, but Kaya's, for the most part, it's only relevant in the context of doing shenanigans with infusions. So yeah, Kaya, shenanigans character. Lisa. Lisa's an interesting one because, you know, she's not very good. Sorry, Sylvia. Xianyun infusion for melt, exactly. The problem is, like, what are the characters? If you're using the characters for just their infusion, what do they contribute other than the infusion? And the thing with Bennett is, Bennett contributes a lot other than just his infusion, on top of Pyro infusion, in my opinion, being the best infusion. So that's why Bennett's going to be the obvious choice if you're going to do infusion shenanigans. But Hydro infusion in particular does have meaningful value just for having extra Hydro application in certain teams. And then Melt is interesting. Like, Cryo is not useless, but Cryo is the least relevant of them. And I also think Xianyun honestly does the least outside of his Cryo infusion. So, yeah. Well, he does do this interesting cooldown reduction, but... Anyways, Lisa, like, if you're like Sylveon, you know, in my chat, she loves to play Lisa for this big ol' multiplier. It lets you see a big number, but this is, like, clunky to pull off. And Lisa does have defense shred in her kit, but energy issues abound. So I don't know. Like, as far as, like, if you really want to use Lisa, you could, again, in the same sense that I mentioned with Yai, but the difference is Yai can be, like, dealing skill-based damage and whatever while you're doing plunge attacks. You're not, like, if you're doing plunge attacks with Lisa, you're doing just plunge attacks. You're doing nothing else with her other than her burst if you have the energy. But theoretically, if you want to use Lisa as a Hybrid Bloom trigger, I think this would be her best fit, is with Xian Yun. And the reason for that is because you can get AoE damage, AoE electro damage that can trigger Bloom cores that can apply, right, it will trigger them that you can control too, because her normal attacks are so annoying to try to trigger. Her normal charge attacks are so annoying, and Catalyst users have a high stamina cost and oftentimes slow animations for their charge attacks too. Like, that's part of the reason, like, I'm interested in doing Yai plunge attacks, is because her charge attack is satisfying, but also, like, even when you jump cancel it, it's still relatively slow, right? Versus plunge attacks should be able to get a more consistent rate and consistent electro out with Xian Yun. So I don't know. Hyper Bloom Lisa becomes more of a thing that's not like, ugh, if you can do it by plunges rather than having to rely on normal attacks, right? So it's a thing. Navia videos coming up have been so boring because everything is Bennett, Xiangling, Zhongli. Exactly, that's why I made my video. Like, she's more versatile than people are making her out to be. Like, you can use her in not just Bennett teams. Barbara, a more Hydra application. If you're using Barbara on field anyways, what is her... So, Barbara has a really... Normally you do charge attack DPS Barbara, right? She has... Oh, it's less. That's sad. Okay, well, never mind. I was going to say maybe DPS Barbara, you could do plunge DPS Barbara instead of charge attack Barbara. It'd still be potentially interesting to do DPS Barbara because, you know, she has the problem of the stamina cost, right? So if you're trying to do DPS Barbara, you can only get in so many charge attacks, and you can get now plunge multipliers in addition to that. It'd be an interesting thing to try. So again, like, fun shenanigans. Like, this is part of why, like, the fact that I can immediately come up with these ideas with characters like this is why I want Xian Yun. But it's not necessarily a reason you should pull for her unless it's something that it seems like it's really fun to you too, right? And I don't know that I would necessarily be better. It's just something I would personally have to play with and be like, yeah, this feels better than doing DPS Barbara normally with just charge attacks. Oh, one notable thing, by the way, that I can think of, you have dodging utility with. Oh, okay, well, I'll just show here, right? Like, this enemy mechanic, right, is meant to teach you, right? Ow, don't kill her. Where's my heal? My heal's gone. Okay. Right, it's meant to teach you what? Jumping to dodge. Keep in mind, you can jump to dodge with Cloud Retainer then, right? You're not going to be able to dodge every single attack in the game, obviously, because some attacks, you know, come from the air or whatever, or enemies will jump in the air and they still might hit you in the air. But very often, I think you're going to be able to utilize Cloud Retainer's jump to be able to avoid some damage. And I personally like that. As a design direction, I like that a lot more than, you know, use Zhongli, tank all the damage meta. The idea of a character that can, you know, let you jump in the air to avoid Coppelius's big swings of damage, like an animo damage hitting you, and then you can avoid getting swirled and getting your characters potentially insta-killed, right? I think it was really cool. So that is relevant. So you also can't cancel her charge attack. Yeah, I know. So yeah, Barbara is interesting as an option to make DPS Barbara feel slightly better. I'd be very curious to try it. Razor. I don't... Does his burst... So Razor, of course, does physical damage, but then he also does electro damage while he... with his burst while you're doing normal attacks, right? Does it trigger on plunges? Disables his charge attacks. Doesn't disable plunges. Strikes alongside Razor's normal attacks. Okay, yeah. So presumably then this does not trigger when you do plunges, which means it's probably not relevant. So again, shenanigans, C6 Bennett, shenanigans with Thundering Fury, Zajeff's Thundering Fury team's already a thing. Does Xian Yun make that better? Right? No, but I think it might be a fun option, maybe. But again, only infusion shenanigans. Xiangling, again, infusion shenanigans, I don't know. C6, you already pair Bennett and Xiangling together most of the time. Now you can do plunge Xiangling. What is their plunge multiplier? This is level 1 again, but 160%. I mean, it's their highest normal attack multiplier. You want to on-field DPS your Xiangling, C6 Bennett, let's go. It's a thing you can do. But again, shenanigans. Okay, same thing. She doesn't have normal attack infusion. Shenanigans. Xingqiu, again, shenanigans. You can do Candace, main DPS, Xingqiu shenanigans. You already build them for attack anyways. What do you do for DPS Xingqiu? He's gonna apply too much hydro. So you just do like a freeze Xingqiu, I guess. So let's just do mono hydro Xingqiu, Candace, Farina, Kazuha, or wait, no, you'd have to use Xian Yun. So Candace, Farina, Xingqiu, and Xian Yun. There you go. Blam, plunge Xingqiu. Yeah, it's not gonna be good, but you know what? You can do it. Ningguang, she's a catalyst. You can apply more Geo. There's an interesting idea in there, like that you could use her as a. People are already using her as a fourth teammate for Navia sometimes, which is cool. You could potentially utilize the buff from the plunge buff for both Ningguang and, well, no, her kit requires her to do normal attacks, doesn't it? This blocks, but then this... Oh yeah, if she does a charge attack, well, okay. I'm pretty sure with her charge attack... Oh yeah, damage per Jade, you get additional... Okay, yeah. Never mind. Oh yeah, her charge attack multiplier is still better than her plunge, so never mind. Not worth. But, I don't know, you could do plunge shenanigans if you want to with Navia, as I was talking about with Navia, but not with Ningguang. I don't think it's really relevant. Again, other than her stamina issue, like it might be slightly relevant because of the stamina issue, right? With those characters. Bennett already talked about. He's the big enabler for shenanigans with plunge damage. Let's be real with his infusion. You could also do it, main DPS Bennett himself. TF Bennett could be kind of fun with doing skill. You might be able to do like Thundering Fury Bennett, skill plunge with C6 Bennett. Sounds like a fun idea for main DPS Bennett, honestly. I should add that to my list, honestly. See, I'm just going through this. I'm just adding things to my list. TF Bennett. Noelle. She does have infusion. So the problem with her... Okay, she does have... Right. That was an interesting case, because she has an infusion, and... she has a high plunge multiplier, so theoretically this could make you see really big numbers, right? Like I could, like my Noelle wet rock team, right, is, I can't see the party in this state. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna show it in the screen instead. So my Noelle wet rock team is Farina, Yelan, Noelle, and then usually I've been using as the 4 slot Yunjin. So I could swap out Yunjin in exchange for Xian Yun. Get the healing, which would, like, to be clear, Noelle can heal through for Frina decently well. But I oftentimes find I lose my shield, or I just don't get enough normal attacks in because of dodging, having to run to enemies, etc., etc. That I oftentimes am not healing enough with Noelle on Marshall Hunters, at least. I suspect with 4-piece Husk on Noelle instead of Marshall Hunters, I would have less issue because I have more defense equals more healing. But with Marshall Hunters on my Noelle, right? With 1600 defense, I usually find that I end up like sitting at like 50% HP a lot, like relatively often with Wet Rock Noelle. So there is definite value to adding a healer to the team. So I'd be sacrificing normal attack damage, the normal attack buff from Yujin, which is a meaningful loss in Noelle's like damage potential, because the big thing with her plunge versus like her other normal attacks, particularly her first hit, second hit, and third hit, is she has a big AoE swing. Like she has a lot of like AoE damage potential, and losing that in exchange for doing VV on the Hydra units, right? So I'm sacrificing Noelle damage in exchange for additional Hydra damage, and then in exchange for doing the plunging thing, which has the defensive utility. It has better synergy with Frina for getting damage bonus on Noelle, and I could do plunges, which could let me get really big damage numbers. I definitely would try it. Is it on my list already? I don't know. It is on my list already. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna try Noelle Wet Rock with Xian Yun, because high multiplier. Like it's got the recipe for all the things. It's just losing the AoE is the big issue. But for single target, it should just be better. So, but it's interesting. It's not necessarily better though. Like, I don't think that's a very meta reason to pull for Xian Yun to make it. I want to make that clear. Oh, we can heal up finally. Good. Plunge multiplier is consistent. If you take a look at all the characters, yeah, I know it's pretty consistent, but it's not as consistent as you might think actually. But there's definite differences in them. The main thing I'm looking at is like the relative difference between their multipliers. Like Barbara, for example, had a higher plunge multiplier or higher charge attack multiplier than plunge multiplier. Yai has a higher plunge multiplier than charge attack multiplier. That's one of the main things I'm looking at here. Because plunge, I'm looking at like, okay, they can apply elements every time they plunge. You can also usually apply elements every time you do a charge attack. So I'm kind of, it's the direct comparison, and then you can weigh the upside of not having to deal with the stamina issue. Stop moaning. Chungyun, I mean, he can give himself an infusion. I think it'd be a fun way to main DPS Chungyun, right? Like, he's a Claymore user too, so it's probably going to be the main way you can see the most consistent, like, high melt damage. I don't know what this is at, like, level 9, but that's obviously a high multiplier. And then, yeah, it's a higher base multiplier than his other abilities, so it's going to be the highest, the way to see probably the highest damage multiplier from him. Well, not necessarily, because you have like constellations that will potentially increase his skill and burst damage to a higher multiplier than his plunge damage would be. But regardless, he can infuse himself, so you're not wasting a slot trying to use him to infuse someone else, right? You're using his infusion for himself and then getting potentially like melt damage on him. It sounds like a fun option, genuinely. Sucrose. Sucrose has like pretty fast normal attacks. Oh, by the way, speaking of like Animo Catalyst and normal attacks, Xian Yun has longer range than Sucrose for her normal attacks, which is good. She doesn't have the Baiju issue wherein you can only like apply the element when you're hugging enemies' faces, which is good. Baiju has a lot of problems in my opinion. But they're slower from what I could tell. You can probably cancel the charge attack, probably, but anyways, you can just kind of like normal attack spam Sucrose as like an on-field driver, and I think Sucrose is going to be a better animal driver as an on-field like just animal unit to swirl constantly if you can afford it, versus Cloud Retainer is my guess, but we'll see. I could be wrong on that, but Sucrose is also better for like her Elemental Mastery buff as a generic buffer for more teams than Cloud Retainer is, just because this is more universal and useful than a plunge damage bonus. But as far as, I don't know, DPS Sucrose, I guess, with Cloud Retainer, I mean, I'm just going to say no, probably, but don't let me stop you. It might be one of the better ways to do DPS sucrose, technically. Jean doesn't have any self-infusion. Shenanigans. Dragon Strike Diluc, kind of talked about him already, right? He has one of the highest plunge damage multipliers in the game, and can give himself an infusion. It's gonna be a proper thing. The only thing that's funny is he's probably gonna be overshadowed by a different Pyro Claymore. Well, not probably. I mean, it depends if he survives. If Gaming releases similar to the kit he has right now, Gaming is probably better than Diluc. And doesn't require Xian Yun. So Gaming would get value from Xian Yun, whereas like Diluc basically will require Xian Yun unless you're doing the really highly technical thing. So anyway, it's really nice that Diluc can get more value because he's a standard character and a lot of people might have him. So the fact that if you like Diluc, you like the idea of wanting to use him, but you never really have been able to use him because like he just doesn't feel very good to use to you, it might be a way to get him to feel good to use to you, which is cool. So yeah. Chi-Chi, no. Well, again, Shenanigans. She doesn't have any infusion. Mona, interestingly, we give it, like, Mona has the problem of she's not really that useful on a meta level because her buff uptime is just too low for the most part. There's really not many teams you can meaningfully use her in the main content that's hard in this game. So she's mostly used for, like, screenshot damage, right? For people, like, nuking on the Wanderer boss, right, to get 1 million damage on Navia. Then, yeah. But you could theoretically configure some teams where you could get extra Hydra application out of her by nature of being able to do plunges with her. And versus having to deal with the charge attack stamina issue, right? And charge attack animation and stamina issue. So it's an option, but the team would have to like allow her to be on field, right? So, right. Kaching, I think her kit incentivizes doing normal attacks, and she's a sword character with a fairly fast charge attack animation. Also, the total multiplier. Yeah, the total multiplier is actually basically the same as her plunge. So there's not much advantage to doing the plunge, really, for any particular reason, other than just because you have Xian Yun and you wanted to try it playing Kaching a different way, is my guess. She has decent AoE in her charge attack. You can spam her charge attack decently well. And, yeah, I don't think there's much reason to do it, realistically. But don't let me stop you from trying it. It's just like there doesn't really seem to be any meaningful advantage from it. Oops, yeah, press the button. There we go. Klee incentivizes charge attacks. I'm assuming she has higher multiplier. Yeah, she has a higher multiplier charge attack than she does plunge attack. I don't know. If you're a Klee main, maybe. Again, it could be the same thing as Barbara, wherein like it might fix the issue of like not having enough stamina, so you could get plunges in as another additional high multiplier attack that you could potentially vape. While you like regain, well, you're not really gonna regain stamina necessarily. So I don't know I really don't know how to play. It'd be something that maybe would be worth looking into, but I wouldn't necessarily specifically plan on it. Same thing as Barbara. Xianyun, no. Shenanigans, exactly. Again, Zhongli, again, no shenanigans. He doesn't do any infusion himself. Zhongli, the interesting thing with the shenanigans for him, I'm saying this because I don't think it would be worth doing plunging. Zhongli has one of the better normal attack strings in the game, particularly in the fact that he hits a lot very quickly, which means he can actually apply, like if you're doing, let's say you're doing Bennett, right? He can apply Pyro here, he can apply Pyro on the 4th hit, he applies Pyro in the 3rd hit of the 5th hit, and then he'd apply, and then it'd repeat the loop actually. So you can do his normal attack string and apply 3 units of whatever infusion he has. So that's why like I've joked about how he's the fastest Hydro applier on my Polar Only account, because he can apply Hydro faster than Canvas can apply as far as like a consistent rate goes, which is funny. And that means like if you're doing infusion shenanigans with a Zhongli, I don't necessarily think it's better to do plunges. It might have some upsides in the fact that it's AoE or whatever, but yeah, anyways, it's still just shenanigans. It's not anything you'd normally do. Yeah, shenanigans. Xiao is of course already a plunging unit. He will take advantage, like Xiao already has plunging damage bonus in his kit from his burst, and therefore that's going to increase even further the how valuable the flat damage bonus from Xian Yun is. So you will see noticeably higher plunge damage, like instances of screenshot damage with Xian Yun. But again, the problem is like Xiao, one of Xiao's advantages is his AoE damage. And yes, he ungroups enemies, but you can like play Xiao smartly to push enemies together, right? That's one of the advantages to Xiao compared to like Wanderer. It's something I'll probably try because I have Xiao on my main account actually, and I have like a decent build on him, but I haven't used Xiao forever. So and the main reason is just like I got bored of the plunge gimmick with Xiao. It's and Xiao doesn't really feel that great outside of like really hyper invested Xiao teams, and I never got that hyper invested into him. But if I have Xian Yun leveled up and usable anyways, I may as well try it again. It'd be a potentially nice alternative to C6 Farazan, but I'm pretty sure a C6 Farazan is going to be a better teammate for Xiao than Xiao Yun. You could do C6 Farazan and Xiao Yun, to be clear, but Hu Tao I talked about already. Like, it seems like C0 Hu Tao might actually have theoretically her strongest team with Xiao Yun, and I think it looks more fun to play than just doing normal jump cancels. I was dancing with a pyro damage calculator. In fact, you could keep up the aura. Candace can do a lot of damage, but that's the hard part, the pyro aura. Yeah, that's always the hard part with vaping your hydros. I don't know. I'm definitely going to try it, to be clear. I am skeptical. I gotta, man, the part of the reason I'm skipping Navi on my main account is like, I'm probably gonna like barely even level up Chevreuse because I'm gonna have to like when the next batch comes out, right? I have so many ideas for stupid, dumb things to try with Cloud Retainer on my main account that it's gonna be Farina all over again for me, but in a dumber way. Where I'm gonna be like, oh crap, now I gotta level up Candace's normal attack talents on my main account. They're leveled up already on my main polearms only, of course, but I'm gonna have to level up on my main account just so I can test out Candace. Well, to be clear, I can test it out without having to level them up, but if I want to actually properly make a video about it rather than just testing it out, I generally speaking would need to level up the talent. So goodbye all my resources. So yeah, Rosaria would be again Infusion Shenanigans. Yanfei, she's incentivized to do charge attacks. I'm guessing her charge attack multiplier is higher. Oh yeah, and I forgot she gets stamina reduction from seals. Her multiplier is higher with max seals. And I think she has like some kind of other damage bonus in her. Yeah. When her charge attack deals damage. So if you're sacrificing charge attacks in exchange for plunging, it's probably not worth doing, right? Versus, using Kazuha or something. Like, yeah. That's again similar case to Klee and Barbara. But honestly, this is even worse than Klee and Barbara because like Klee and Barbara have the use case of it the plunges could help you with managing the stamina issue, whereas she has some inherent stamina refunding, so therefore it's probably less relevant. Eula, no, she doesn't do any infusion. So Shenanigans, Kazuha. Kazuha genuinely. So Kazuha has a very high plunge damage multiplier. So I actually have a Kazuha that already has plunge his normal attacks leveled up because I played Pyro Kazuha and other crit Kazuha variations in the past. So, at level 9 here is a 375% high plunge multiplier. And so Kazuha's initial skill, when he activates his skill, gets, on activation it's either the press or skill activation. But then the plunge, you see it like he describes, he uses a blah 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 plunging attack known as midair rounds, and that's using this multiplier, right? So it doesn't use the multiplier from here, it uses the multiplier from here. And yeah, so Kazuha has one of the highest plunge multipliers in the game too. Funnily enough, I think I'm pretty confident he's definitely the highest sword multiplier, that's for dang sure. And of course he's an animal unit though, so you can do shenanigans with Bennett, of course, like I do. But you can also just, try to use it for... Wait, does it do... Yeah, sorry, no, it does. I'm dumb. It does the animo damage. So yeah, you can just try to crank out the animo damage. But you can always also, outside of... This only applies when it only does animo damage when you're using this skill. So when you don't use this skill, though, you could do things like with C6 Bennett and use Kazuha on a Pyro Goblet, for example, which Pyro Goblet would also increase the damage his burst infusion does, right? This dot burst infusion over time. Whether you infuse Pyro or another element, An attack percent goblet would increase that. It would increase his anemo damage and increase his pyro-based damage if you're doing C6 Bennett. So DP crit Kazuha is definitely something I'm going to revisit with Xian Yun, is my point. It sounds like a fun idea. Is it going to be meta use? No, but it sounds really fun. And Kazuha's the best thing about Kazuha is how much you realize how much you can use his kit for creative things past just, being a buffer. Obviously that's what makes him strong, and I usually have him on a buffing build because he's useful. Like that, go figure. But he's also really fun to use outside of the normal sense, and Xian Yun is giving you even more incentive to do that, is my point. TF C1 Sack Kazuha. If you have C1 Kazuha, I don't think there's much reason to do Sack Kazuha, so for what it's worth. I mean, well, other than like energy. I don't know, you'd be able to, if you're focusing specifically on the anemo damage, if you're focusing specifically on the anemo damage from Kazuha, there is reason to, I guess. I personally would be more focused on trying to balance the anemo damage and pyro, because you can also use that with doing other things too, but anyways. So, because you could do like I'm thinking like a hybrid pyro anemo damage Kazuha with an attack goblet, with Kazuha, Bennett, Xian Yun, Farina, right? That sounds fun. But yeah, you will see some big anemo damage numbers from people doing a crit Kazuha with Xian Yun. That he's gonna get some big numbers. And I think a lot of people might actually try crit Kazuha with Xian Yun's release. And Kazuha might help with Xian Yun's energy needs too, which means you could potentially focus more into her buff even more. You give yourself an infusion. She does have like standard ICD where she can like trigger melts on her charge attack, but she has a 3-hit charge attack, right? So melt Ayaka with Xian Yun sounds like a fun idea, personally. It's how I'd play Ayaka, because I don't like freeze that much. Every time I've tried freeze Ayaka, I don't really enjoy it that much. But that said, right, it's, she has low stamina costs. Is it necessarily better as far as multiplier value goes? Not necessarily. But the difference is you can melt 160, like this is at level 1. You can melt the 160% multiplier versus only melting 1 hit in the charge attack multiplier, right? So you can get much more damage from a melt out of the charge attack. Out of the plunge versus a charge attack. So sounds fun. You could do it. Should you focus on building attack on Shenhe or attack and crit? Yeah, it's attack and ER, as Yuling just said. Yeah, it's meet her energy needs and then as much attack as you can have after that. The only reason you would put a crit circlet on Shenhe is if you needed to enable Fav, I guess. But I really don't recommend it. You're sacrificing a lot of potential buff. The ideal build for Shenhe is going to be ER attack. If you need the extra ER from an ER timepiece, and then hopefully your ER timepiece just has a bunch of attack percent substats, or attack to maximize your buff, and then have enough ER substats with crit rate for Favalance too. Sayu, no, again, shenanigans. Yeah, just shenanigans. Yoimiya, why? Oh, I didn't filter out the bow characters. Sadly, she's a bow character, so no value. Literally no relevance other than like if you don't have Sucrose leveled or something, and like if your only animal supports leveled up were Xian Yun and Kazuha, then you can throw and you really wanted to use an Anemo in your Yoimiya team, but wanted Kazuha for the other side of Abyss, not with Yoimiya, then I guess you could throw Xian Yun with, but she really doesn't gain much value with Yoimiya other than, you wanted a grouper or something. So that's it. Raiden. Raiden's an interesting case. I haven't seen clarification. Like Homcat, so Homcat's the one that like releases, like usually is the leaker that gives us all the technical info, which is always really important for trying to like judge these characters. Interestingly, Homcat said that they specified in an example, and I think in one of their tweets, that Raiden Shogun does get the buff, if I recall. They didn't specifically say it, but they included Raiden Shogun when they tried to clarify the way that Xian Yun's plunge damage buff worked. And therein, like, I don't know if they just... So I don't know if Homcat made a mistake and just included Raiden Shogun in their tweet. As an example of, like, you could use this character to plunge with Xian Yun, because technically, yeah, you can. The problem is, and why they might not actually work together, is because Raiden specifically has this clause in her burst that says her normal charged and plunging attack damage will be considered elemental burst damage. And usually when you have these clauses in Genshin that say character's damage is considered as something else, that means, so what this means, right, this is why, like, Emblem, 4P's Emblem increases, you know, her normal charge attack damage when you have a normal carry Raiden build or whatever, right? Emblem increases it because it counts as burst damage, and Emblem gives burst damage %. And that's good. But if it counts as burst damage, that usually means it doesn't count as plunging damage. And Xian Yun specifically says when plunging damage happens, right? So it's possible Homcat made a mistake in including Raiden in their example that they gave. When, you know, nearby active characters' plunging attack shockwave damage will increase by 170% of Xian Yun's attack. The interesting thing about this, right, is that this buff, and this is the reason, like, I think it actually might work with Raiden, is because it says, you know, nearby active characters' plunging attack shockwave damage is the trigger, right? Will be increased by this. That's the requirement. It doesn't say nearby characters have to deal plunging damage. It says nearby characters have to deal plunging attack shockwave damage. So that is why Raiden might actually work with Xian Yun. Which is a weird nuance. It's a weird nuance. But I think it will work. Because of that shockwave clarification, because the shockwave damage always happens. Like, whenever you're doing plunge, even though it counts as burst damage for, like, Emblem or whatever, it still gets the shockwave. So if they coded it that way, to be looking specifically for an instance of shockwave thing happening to apply the extra damage to, not when it not looking for specifically if it counts as a plunge damage. Like, it's a weird difference, right? It's very possible she doesn't work with Xian Yun at all, and she doesn't trigger her buff because it counts as burst damage, because of the clause in Raiden's burst that says it counts as burst damage. But if it does work, then she does get buffed by it, and Raiden has the highest multiplier. Go to her burst multiplier. The highest multiplier she has is potentially her plunge damage, right? And it's not that much higher, to be clear, right? We're talking 74% plus 60%. What is that? Like 134? We're talking 20, 35%, 30%, whatever. It doesn't matter. This is at level 1, right? So at level 9, what is it at? So 293% versus... Okay, that scaling actually went higher than I thought it would. So that's an additional 70% multiplier from her charge attack. That's not insignificant. Plus the buff from Xian Yun herself. Is it better than using Kazuha for carry Raiden? No, not necessarily. Probably not, realistically. Losing, 40% damage bonus from Kazuha, Kazuha buffing Raiden is probably not worth having, exchanging. But, right, because not having Kazuha is going to lower your big hit, right? You're going to get less big hit damage from your initial hit, but more plunging damage. But I don't know. It'd be a fun, different way to play carry Raiden, potentially. And I can definitely tell you I'm going to try it for hybrid Raiden in particular, because it might be slightly better. I don't think it's going to be slightly better than, because it would require swapping out Bennett, which means it's really not going to be necessarily better. But it's just a fun variation, and maybe the defensive utility makes it worth it or something, right? So, I don't know. It's something, and it might not work at all, again. But it's interesting. There's a bot, got deleted. Thanks, Sylveon. Did I even put Hybrid Raiden in my list? I didn't. I forgot to. Hybrid Raiden. There we go. I said I was going to go through this quickly. Good lord. The stream is ending after this, by the way. Okay, so Raiden, Kokomi, I mean, you could use it for extra. You already use Kokomi a little bit on field. You could use it for extra application, theoretically. If that's something you need to do, you could do it. I don't know. It'd be another way to do DPS Kokomi, but her charge attacks might be... Yeah, her charge attacks are actually higher multiplier again, so... Yeah, realistically, there's not much point, but there might be minor utility to it. It's not something you'd probably normally build towards. Toma no, unless shenanigans. Ito would be interesting. I don't know, you could... normally, I'm pretty sure Ito... I'm not that old. Ask Binge on my Discord server if you really want to wonder if Cloud Retainer is good with Ito. My knowledge of Ito is that like, he wants to do like pretty specific attack combos, right? So, what is the benefit of like making him do plunging instead? Especially, yeah, okay. Especially when, yeah. So he has like his multiplier is higher for his plunge compared to his like combo damage and his final slash damage. But I think he also gets like damage bonus or something. In I don't know. Go ask Binge or something. But I'm gonna say probably not. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe. It might be a way to use Ito outside of Mono Geo, right? You could do Cloud Retainer, Farina, Ito, and then, I don't know, whatever teammate for Ito. Probably a Geo teammate still. So, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to recommend it. Oh, Project Amber's still showing. Oh, fuck's sake. How long is that showing? For Christ's sake. What do you think about the weapon of gaming? It's Claymore. We already know that. I don't know how long that was showing. So, anyways, I was talking about Raiden, and I don't even know if I showed Raiden, so whatever. Kokomi, Ito, Yunjin, no. I mean, shenanigans, but like, if you're using Yunjin, you're probably using her for a buff, so why would you do shenanigans with her? But don't let me stop you if you want to do normal attack Yunjin or something with some kind of infusion shenanigans. Shenhe, again, would be shenanigans with Yun or whoever else. Yeah, so shenanigans. What team goes well with Animo? Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro damage dealers? Yeah. Yeah, I talked about it a little bit, right? She has slow normal attacks, and standard IC normal attacks, and a slow charge attack. So being that you have a higher multiplier on her, that's interesting. I didn't notice her scaling is, yeah, so her scaling, her plunge attack at a higher level is higher scaling than her charge attack. Apparently level 1 is technically higher charge attack. But let me switch to Yai. So I'll try to show the team I was kind of thinking of here.
Whatever would you do?
So we'll go with like my Yai Quick Bloom idea, right? The only problem with Yai Quick Bloom here, with Nahida in particular, would be Xian Yun would have potential issues in trying to consistently swirl Electro, being that Yai is just probably not going to apply enough Electro to overwrite the Dendro Aura. But the general idea here would be, right, to use Farina for the damage percent bonus, and then you have Nahida, of course, and then you're getting Electro application every time you're plunging. So, which I think, yeah, we'll be able to generate Dendro cores, right? Oops. Right, so plunge, right, plunge. You can see him triggering Aggravate, triggering, if Hydra's on the man, triggering Electro Charge, and triggering Hyper Bloom, and it, oh, yeah, I said. Triggering Hyper Bloom every single time, of course, too, and she would be better, more consistent at triggering Hyper Bloom cores doing the plunges, than, ow, can you not? She'd be more consistent at triggering the Hyper Bloom cores with plunges because of AoE that I can also like control. Like I can see cores are sitting right here, and then I can jump up and plunge specifically near those cores to try to make sure I trigger them, right? Like it's going to be better for Quick Bloom Yai, for consistency for triggering cores. When I do Quick Bloom Yai without, well, not without, whenever I've tried Quick Bloom Yai before, like you just kind of live with having some of your cores that don't get triggered. It's fine. You can use normal attacks if you position smartly. Like I do like Quick Bloom Yai a lot more for trying to trigger cores. I think she's a lot easier to trigger the cores than Lisa is. But yeah. And then the other thing is Yai's charge attack is not like horrible. I use it relatively often when I'm on fielding Yai. But you saw actually I just jumped a little bit early there and I canceled it too early and therefore I didn't get it out. But you can jump cancel his charge attack. And you do get an application every single time. But that is a lot more clunky in practice, and the stamina cost is high because stamina cost is 50 for Catalyst users. And the way it hits is it's not the easiest necessarily. It's no easier to use a charge attack to trigger Dendro cores than it is to use normal attacks, in my experience, with her. So I personally like the idea of, you know, doing a plunge attack Yai for shenanigans. And it might be the best way to use on-field Yai. Even without doing Quick Bloom, because you can get more aggravates out potentially too. So versus only if you're doing just like normal attack, charge attack, right? So if I was doing normal attack, you know, I don't normally practice optimal sequences for Yai's normal attacks because it doesn't really matter. I just normally like normal attack spam and then I try to do a charge attack, something like that, right? And then I do a charge attack, right? So that took probably like. Let's look at the cooldown for Yai's skill, right, and see how many skills get back. I'll do it after. Okay. Oh, I didn't mean to do it. God dang it. I mean, I'm trying to like watch the cooldown and do this at the same time. So each of Yai's skills is 4 seconds, right? So like we counting how many skills. All right, and do. Right, like, yeah, so it takes like 4 seconds to do that. And that's 2 electro applications that can happen in 4 seconds. Whereas I'm pretty sure this thing, right, if we do the same thing here. Wait a second. Alright. Plunge. I got hit. I'm pretty sure I can get 3 applications out, or maybe more in the same time. So I can probably get 3 applications per 4 seconds versus 2 applications for 4 seconds, right? And that's more aggravates. That's more aggravates that can trigger Fischl too, right? So it's potentially again a better way to on-field Yai. Just pull Lisa C4 to trigger cores. True. So I'm gonna try to get through this and end my stream on time. So I literally have stuff scheduled with my friends in like 40 minutes. Like I need to leave. Anyway, I also have a thumbnail. I have a video, like I have made a video yesterday and I made a video today because both of those are like ones I wanted to release my Navia impressions video. I wasn't even sure if I was going to make into a video, but I thought it made for a good video after I watched the footage. And then I made, of course, the weapons only Missplitter summons yesterday, and then I have another video coming out tomorrow. So I gotta make a thumbnail for that. So I got crap to do today. But anyways, I wanted to talk about this because I'm probably not streaming next week. Really, well, I think I'll stream for Star Rail next week, sometime in the week. But holiday things are going on, so I'm probably not going to be able to stream for next week, is my guess. But anyways, let's finish this quick. Where did we lay out? Yai. Ayato, he doesn't get a normal attack. And if you, I know, so his skill counts as normal attack damage. Stop. His skill counts as normal attack damage, but he doesn't get a normal attack infusion. So he is in a situation that functionally is the same as other, you know, not infused melee characters. So you'd have to do shenanigans, and if you're doing shenanigans, you're probably not doing his skill, which, like, then why are you bothering? Does his burst passive? I think he has a passive that buffs normal attack damage. Does it buff plunging damage? Or no, it's not. Is it just in... Oh yeah, oh, it's just in his kit, his ultimate description. So yeah, it just gives normal attack damage bonus too, so you're not even getting any damage bonus additional. I was checking if it was normal and plunging or whatever, but it wasn't, so... Yeah, shenanigans, basically. That's it, but honestly, even less shenanigans than other characters have, because there's just not much reason to do shenanigans with him versus just using him in a normal way. If you want to do shenanigans that are fun on him, I wouldn't recommend Xian Yun. I would recommend just, like, 4-piece... Stop. I would recommend 4-piece TF on him. That's the most fun thing I've seen on him. Diluc got buffed and power crept in the same update. Exactly. Cookie, shenanigans, she doesn't infuse herself. She does have interesting, like, things she does, of course. She's a healer. So, I don't know, the idea of aggravate Cookie. I really want them to release a external electro infuser sometime, hopefully, soon in the future. Maybe that's Chlorian, who knows. And then I can do shenanigans like that with Cookie or whatever, and then make her whole kit like aggravate damage and whatever. And you could do like a quick bloom Cookie or something with an external electro infusion. To me, it sounds like a really fun idea. I'd certainly try it. Is there a reason to do plunges over just other things for like infusion shenanigan Cookie? Not necessarily. So shenanigans, but like not really that relevant. Hazo, I mean, obviously Hazo's made to like nuke with his skill, right? He has a decently high plunge attack multiplier compared to his other normal multiplier. Does his passive require... So I know his passive to build up stacks for his skill. When he triggers a swirl, he gains a whatever strike. Okay, so yeah, he doesn't have to do normal attacks. And part of the problem with Hazo actually is that like you have to do normal attacks, charge attacks to trigger swirls to build up stacks for his burst. Or sorry, for his skill. But his normal attacks, like, look at his multipliers. They're just sad. But his plunge multiplier is not as sad. I don't know what it is when it's, like, level 9 or anything, and it's not worth the time to level up, but it's probably going to be towards, like, the same that Yai is, I'm guessing. Probably around the 300% range at level 9 is my guess. And that puts it in the territory with Xian Yun that you could, you know, do a swirl every time you plunge. You get a stack every single time you plunge, which might even be faster than doing charge attacks with him. It's probably about the same time as charge attacks, but he also has a less charge attack stamina cost than other catalyst users, so that aspect is less of an issue. So time-wise, I don't know if it's that much faster to gain stacks realistically, but it's more just the additional damage. The problem is like again the plunging damage buff too from Xian Yun, so it'd be interesting to try it. Would it fix him or anything? I mean, probably not realistically. You're probably still are, you know, you do Xian Yun, Bennett, Hazo, and then who else, right? Like the problem is you're not gonna do much other reaction other than that. So you could throw in Farina for more damage bonus. You could throw in Xiangling just because Xiangling, and it'd be fine, right? That's kind of my thinking. But it wouldn't necessarily be wildly impressive, but it wouldn't let you see big numbers from him, and it might make him feel better. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to try if you really like Hazel. Dory, she does get a infusion with her C6, I think. Right? Yeah. So she gets a 3-second electro infusion, which I think she gets that multiple times, but that's not that important, honestly. She's a Claymore user. She gets an infusion. She has a high plunge multiplier. I don't know. Don't let me stop you. I'm sure... Well, actually, I was going to say I'm sure Binge is going to try it, because Binge is the one that does, like, DPS Dory shenanigans, but I don't know if Binge is going to get Xian Yun, because apparently he says that, like, jump plunging stuff makes him motion sick. So I imagine he might not get Xian Yun, so that's sad. But, yeah, there's some Dory shenanigans to be had with her C6. I kind of talked about Candace already earlier. She's one of the infusion shenanigans characters, of course. But you could also make her potentially more valuable as a DPS, because one of the big problems she has is that her charge attack is relatively high multiplier, but of course the plunge is higher multiplier. But more notably, her charge attack is pretty slow. And that means you can probably get a lot more damage out potentially with Candace as a DPS Candace with Xian Yun. So I definitely actually really like the idea of trying DPS Candace, so I will try it. DPS Candace with Xian Yun. Sino, probably not. His whole kit, I think, buffs and incentivizes normal attack damage. Yeah, normal attack damage is increased, so that means not plunging attack. And, like, you have to do... Yeah, his whole thing is based around, like, doing his skill with the timing minigame. And then, you know, like... don't let me stop you if you want to, I guess. It's got a high multiplier. But he's more made around less his multiplier damage, more just, like, aggravate and or... you know, quick bloom, whatever, etc. So I don't think it's really relevant at all. And it probably would make it... You probably would get a lot less damage doing plunges, my guess, versus just normal attack go. So yeah. Nilu, no. Shenanigans, I guess, again, with Candace or something silly. But I don't recommend. Nahida. Nahida does not need the extra Dendra application. Her normal attack string feels pretty good. Like, if you do her normal attack string, you get, you know, if you're just spamming normals, which you don't usually spam normals on her for very long, but sometimes you do. So you do, you know, you get Dendro, and then doesn't apply on the third hit, does apply on the fourth hit. And then doesn't apply first hit, doesn't apply second hit, does apply third hit if you continue spamming. And it feels fairly fast to do those. And then you can do charge attacks too, and her charge attacks feel decently fast and good to do. So there's not much particular synergy. And Xian Yun is also going to, like, Nahida has the problem with Animo units in that Nahida can eat so much aura of, like, your Hydro aura from Farina or your Electro aura from other characters, right? That you won't be able to swirl the aura you would want to swirl for VV buff or for whatever going on. Which is a little awkward, but on the other hand, that does mean, you know, if you have Nahida on a Xian Yun team, if you can't swirl the, you know, your Hydro or your Electro, that means you could use the new healing set with its flat damage bonus. I think I forgot to finish talking about that earlier. The new healing set synergizes with their kit really well. Xian Yun should be able to keep up the passive on that healing set pretty consistently, to consistently give like a periodic flat damage bonus. It's limited on number of instances it can buff, but if you're using like Xiao with Xiao Yun. Xian Yun, Xiao with Xiao Yun, Xian Yun with Xiao, then, you know, the healing set makes more sense and whatnot, but I digress. You get the point. Nahida doesn't really need the extra application, and there's not any much direct synergy, not that you can't use them together ever. No. Yeah, okay. I mean, no, because plunging would mean you're ending his skill, right? So there's literally like no synergy with him. He has active anti-synergy with Xiao Yun, so no. Layla shenanigans, Yao Yao shenanigans, but slightly more relevant shenanigans because you normally have to on-field Yao Yao a little bit anyways while she's healing. So if you're on-fielding her anyways, there's more incentive to do shenanigans. Like you can see, like I use the Yao Yao Candace combo to clear abysses. It's a real thing, in my opinion. Is it as strong as doing other things necessarily? No. But it's a thing that works, and it's fun, in my opinion. Adding Xiao Yun to the God dang it. dang it, Xiao, and I'm saying Xiao Yun. Xian Yun. Would be interesting, but it's not like she's going to see insane damage because you have to build like ER or healing stats on her, generally speaking. That's what I would do. You can sacrifice that for damage, but like it's, you know, if you're planning to use Candace with her, you know, make her a Hydro plunge damage dealer, you could get more Hydro application out potentially than doing charge attacks with her. It's interesting. I would definitely try it. Try her as like a flex in my Hyper Bloom team on Polearms only if she was a Polearm character. Is it something you should actually do? Dia, I already talked about. It might make for the best Vape Dia team, not because it's actually uniquely better than anything because of Dia's kit, but just because Dia's kit is so bad that doing hybrid or doing C6 Bennett vaping with her plunge with Xiao Yun might be the best way to do Vape Dia at C0. That's how bad Dia's kit is. But any Claymore user could do that the same as she could. So, anyways, Hatham interestingly has plunge synergy already, right? But his multipliers are, you know, decent on its plunge, obviously. And he has this incentive already to start with a plunge. The problem is, right, this effect that gives him mirrors from plunges only triggers once every 12 seconds, so once per rotation. So doing additional plunges doesn't give you additional mirrors or anything. So I don't really think there's that strong of synergy, particularly because, you know, Animo doesn't really benefit him in any particular way. It'd just be if you want to, I guess it might be worth trying. You know, you might do official Alhaitham which would be enough. Sorry, official Yai Al Haytham something. Like if I had this might be a thing I try, right? Official Yai Al Haytham and then Xiao Yun. God dang it. Whatever. I'm just gonna call her Xiao Yun. It's what her name is now. No, it's Xian Yun. Screw you, Xiao. How does Yao Yao have synergy with Candace? You can get Hydra application from Candace with Infusion, and from C6 that I have. But even without C6 it works while doing Dendro on field, because you're on fielding Yao Yao. Anyways, Yao Yao's melee, right? So, anyways, Haytham. It's not a strong synergy, I would say. But if I randomly had a Haytham for some reason, and I liked playing him already with units that would like an Animo unit, like a double Electro combo, it'd be something that'd be interesting to try. I just don't know how strong and how relevant it would actually be versus using other teammates. That if my goal was to buff Al Haytham, Xiao Yun, God's sake, Xian Yun. Why is my brain like this? Like I said it once, now I'm just saying it over and over again. Xian Yun doesn't have any meaningful like direct synergy. So Mika, no. Again, shenanigans, but like it's Mika. You do infuse yourself with Dendro, and you are a Claymore user, so this should be a really high multiplier. Again, the problem is he's a Dendro, so he himself does not care about Animo. It's more his teammates caring about Animo. So it'd be interesting. I don't know. The Plunge Kave. Doesn't he have a funny plunge attack too? What is his plunge attack? I think he has a funny plunge. I can't remember what it is. I remember I'm mentioning it because I remember people like during his beta, right? People like really loved his animations in general, and one of the things they loved was his plunge animation. So if there's if there's an animation that's special, like that's obviously a potential reason to do it. So that doesn't look that special. I mean, he holds the suitcase, which is funny. Is that why? I think the only reason is just because he holds the suitcase. So, you know, if you the problem with him is like you need. I don't know. It sounds like a fun idea. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. It's just a problem with Dendro not directly synergizing in any particular way, but you'll see big plunge damage. It'll be the best way to see big normal attack multiplier damage from him. It's just a matter of, you know, getting enough energy on him. So, like, you use Nahida, I guess, to get enough energy, hopefully. And then everyone else also still probably has to be on Fav. And he probably still needs an energy recharge weapon. Yeah, Kave got the... I don't know, it might, to be clear, it might not be as hard as I'm making it out to be, right? But use like Skyward Pride on him. Put some decent Gilded Dreams build on him. And give him enough energy from his teammates, and it might be some shenanigans. You have to wait for him to finish his animation? Oh. Well, okay. On a combat level, I don't necessarily recommend... Oh, okay, I see. Okay, I see. That's why people like it. Okay, the problem with that on a combat level, right, is that you don't normally want to wait for the animation. Yeah, so... If you want to, it's probably a better way to utilize Kave. He's not that relevant for much else, so, you know. Alright, we're almost done. I can finally end this stream. Good lord. This stream is already like 2 hours longer than I wanted it to be. A short video. I'm leaving the title, by the way. It might attract viewers. They're like, lol, why is this 3-hour video say a short video? Baiju, I mean... So the thing with Baiju, the synergy might be right. So, okay, the problem is you're doing 2 healers, right? So, like, okay. But Baiju has potato application, and he has no AoE application. Xian Yun by nature of plunge damage having AoE application that would always apply Dendro, would give him more Dendro application and it would give him AoE Dendro application. But are you ever going to actually pair 2 healers on the team? Like, when is that relevant? Like, when is the extra Dendro application you get for AoE Dendro application from Baiju with God's sake, Xian Yun relevant enough to do? I don't think I would ever really bother. And you could do DPS Baiju too, of course, but like, yeah. So, yeah. Kirara, no infusion, shenanigans. No infusion, shenanigans. No infusion, shenanigans. He's an HP scaler, so probably not. But you know what? If you want a meme, don't let me stop your dreams. That's for dang sure. Risley. I mean, it would solve his HP negative problem. if you stop doing charge attacks. If you stop doing... Oh wait, no, you just... I mean, you don't have to use a skill, I guess, technically. 4P... Oh wait, is 4P Sheep... No, 4P Sheep analysis doesn't benefit his skill. I don't know. You could do it. Don't let me stop you. I don't know if it's better. I mean, it would give him AoE damage instead of his single target damage. And you don't have to worry about being HP negative. I don't know. I don't... It might be better. That's the sad part. It might be better. I'm not confident it's worse. Xian Yun is... I almost said Xian Yun again. Xian Yun is an anti-synergy for how his kit works. I'm going to be very clear. But she's Animo. She can swirl. She can do VV. She can do grouping. And then he gets AoE application that applies cryo every single time he hits. And it's a high... It's not higher multiplier. I don't know what it looks like at level 9. I don't care enough. But like... I don't have a super high opinion of Risley. It might be a side grade. It might be better. I don't know. Charlotte. Okay. Interestingly, I did a DPS Charlotte video, right? Higher multiplier. And part of the problem with her, like, okay, the problem is, like, DPS Charlotte, the reason I was doing it was because of her normal attack animations. So if I'm doing just plunge animation, that's kind of boring to me. So I don't think I'd have a reason to do it, basically. But it would be a better way to get damage out of Charlotte than doing normal attacks, realistically. So, you know, doing Shenhe, Charlotte, Xiaoyun, God's sake, brain, Xian Yun. Yeah, and then you can do Bennett or whoever else. Like, yeah. Plunge Charlotte genuinely might be pretty decent. I'm not joking. Yeah, it probably is one of the better ways to DPS Charlotte. It's just a problem of it's not the fun way to DPS Charlotte to me. The reason I would be DPSing Charlotte would be for normal attacks, but on a numbers level, it's probably better. Farina, no infusion. So no. Basically, shenanigans, of course, as always. She does get an infusion. What is her... I don't know what her normal attack is at higher level. It probably... Or sorry, her plunge multiplier is at higher level. It's probably higher than her other multipliers, though, based on her being a claymore and, yeah, based on the base level scaling here. So, being that... So, Navia... If you pair Navia with Farina, right, she has a problem of wanting a lot of... she wants a healer, right, when you're using Farina normally. So, what healer do you choose, right? Right now, there isn't really a lot of good options. But if you're doing something like, I don't know, let's say you're doing Wet Rock Navia, right? You can absolutely do that. You could do Navia, Farina, Yelan probably just for more damage bonus. Why not, right? I don't think you need the defensive utility from Xingqiu in that variation specifically, so I'd prefer Yelan. So Navia, Farina, Yelan, and then Xian Yun. I don't know. It sounds like an interesting idea. I don't know that you would actually get more crystallizes out doing that, but you might get more damage from her normal attack sequence, right? So, it's not something you can't do. But yeah, I don't know. It would be better than other healer options potentially. It is kind of all it comes down to in that case, because you can buff your Hydra units in that team with VV, and then you buff your plunge attack damage and increase the amount of normal attack damage that she's contributing per rotation, theoretically. So I don't know. It sounds like a good idea. Physical Femine, oh, that's okay. I maybe shouldn't ignore Physical Femine. That's true. Since Femine is a Claymore character and he is made to be physical, and with his C3, he technically has the highest plunge multiplier in the game because his C3 gives him normal attack talent level up, and yeah, I think it goes up to like 450% or something like that at that level 13 or something. And you could technically use Child and get it to level 14. Oh, Child is a bow character that technically might be able, oh. Yeah, no. Child is a melee stance. I think Child technically might have the dumbest synergy with Xian Yun. I don't think there's really a reason to do it, because I don't think it... Does it trigger Riptide? Normal and charge attacks apply the Riptide status. Yeah. So... I don't think you would really do it. But... and I don't know. Oh wait, there's not even a plunging attack multiplier here. Okay, so... Does that mean his plunge does physical damage, I'm assuming? I don't know. He doesn't have a plunge. He literally just can't plunge. Oh, okay. Never mind. Good. So then, yeah. Never mind. But yeah. The Femine, physical Femine is you know, technically a thing. Particularly if you have constellations. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be an interesting idea. The main thing would be to try to take advantage of the fact that, you know, Cloud Retainer would be Animo, so what teammates can you have that would synergy with physical Femine that would work with that? Obviously you want an Electro, so hey, you can do Electro, you can do Superconduct, and then you can swirl Electro to try to like increase your official damage. And then who do you do for a teammate after that? Probably Rosaria, I'm guessing, if you have like your C6, or just another unit that synergizes with official, probably, which is a lot of units. So yeah, I don't know. It'd be an interesting idea to do physical plunge Femine. If you like Femine, it's definitely something I would try, but I don't necessarily know that, you know, I need to pull Xian Yun for physical Femine. Like, no. So, anyways, most of the stream was spent talking about Xian Yun because she's the more complicated character and a lot harder to evaluate. But I think, I hope you gained something valuable from me going over the list of characters there. That took a while. This was a little bit longer than I intended, but hopefully it's decently comprehensive. To summarize my thoughts, I think Gaming looks super, super cool. The fact that he's going to be free and might release in this state, and I'm optimistic again because it feels intentional to me. But if he gets nerfed meaningfully, you know, if you might have like energy problems in release, or his multipliers might get nerfed, or whatnot, or he might have limits added in how many plunges he can get out. Right? They might add a clause to his burst saying he can only have his cooldown or reset his burst, whatever, you know, whatever it's phrased like. His burst can only reset his skill cooldown 3 times, and that obviously heavily limits him. So they could definitely screw him if they wanted to. My optimism is just that I think they know that he's good and they want him to be good, and I think it's on purpose, because I think they know people would talk about the stupid character named Gaming. I'm going to call him Gaming, though. Calling him Gaming makes me feel like I'm just, like, avoiding it, though. But, like, from what I understand, like, Gaming is, like, a localization of an actually relatively common Chinese name. So it's, like, not weird. And it's just annoying that they didn't capitalize the M, in my opinion. But we'll see how it actually is pronounced in game, too. Hopefully it's Gaming in game, and then that's my excuse. Anyways, get ready for gaming in version 4.4. Anyway, so yeah, he seems super cool. I remain optimistic about him. We'll see, though. Take, of course, with a grain of salt, because betas can change. As far as Xian Yun, as I said, I think she's a bit niche. Despite all the weird circumstances I went over that I could say, you know, I could creatively utilize her in, none of those things are particularly, like, super meta things, right? So, if you're the kind of player that I am, where like my account is at an investment state, right? Where like I don't need anything in particular other than characters I want just to have fun with. And for a lot of characters, that's like I don't. Navia is cool and pretty fun when I tried her, but like she doesn't enable anything for me. Whereas Xian Yun is an enabler for me to do weird, goofy things, and that's how I have fun in Genshin. But it's not how everyone plays the game, and that's why I'm not going to just like recommend her, despite how much I actually am really enthused about her. It's just because on a baseline level, she's now made plunging a thing on other characters. That wasn't really a thing before because it was too clunky to do with Venti or with Albedo, right? Like, their mechanic for enabling plunges is not very good. Whereas hers is just, you jump and then you plunge. And it makes sense. That's how it should have been in Albedo's or Venti's kit. So, anyways. I like her, but I can't recommend her. This is my current verdict on her. And I really hope she has some changes with her energy generation. I hope they like... The biggest thing I could see that could help her is give her like a 6-second cooldown. Since she has the modes of her skill where you can do E-plunge, EE plunge, or EEE plunge. Right now it's like you kind of have to do EEE plunge just for the energy is my vibe that I've gotten. So I hope they actually give a reason to do the other plunges, which would reduce her potential field time requirements too, by like making her E plunge have a 6-second cooldown, making her EE plunge have a 9-second cooldown, and then only the EEE plunge, which gives you the vortex, has a 12-second cooldown, right? So there's a cost benefit of that, because right now there is like the only benefit to doing the E plunge or EE plunge is the lower field time. Which you might have to do sometimes, but then her energy requirements go up, and that's just annoying. And it's just... right. So, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe her weapon will help with energy problems. Oh, good lord. So... Sorry, Bug. Her weapon is simultaneously fairly strong as a buffing weapon for what she does. Like, her weapon increases plunging damage. For like teammates plunging damage. They're draining my HP here. Increase teammates plunging damage by 28% or one, if I believe, and then she can refund like 20 total energy to herself. But refunding energy to herself with her signature weapon requires doing plunge attacks. So that means if you wanted to use Xian Yun with her signature weapon just as a generic like, you're just using her as an anima unit because, she's an anima unit I have leveled up and I haven't put resources into sucrose. So I'm just going to slot her into a team to swirl and to be able to heal and to be able to group a little bit, right? Like, there's value to gain from having Xian Yun in a team just for grouping, swirling, and healing, right? Like, those are a combination of 3 things that are nice to have in one unit that could make her useful enough to pick, regardless of her plunging buff. But her signature weapon requires engaging with her plunging gimmick, which means, like, why, right? Like, so yes, it technically does fix her ER needs, but it requires engaging with her plunging gimmick, which you won't always do. So I absolutely, because of that, do not recommend going for that weapon. Also, it's really weird and it gains really significant bonus. Like, from R1 to R5, it doesn't go from 28% damage bonus for plunges. It goes from 28% to 80% plunging damage bonus, which is ridiculous. So you're going to have a lot of Giga Whales that use Xian Yun with C2 and R5 of her weapon. And that will be like for like screenshot damage for plunges, that will be a lot higher screenshot damage. But like it compounds with her kit well. The plunging damage bonus does. It makes sense. But I don't know. Also, it's like 49 base attack. It's the same base stats as Shenhe's weapon. Oh crap! I forgot she did that. I managed to. Okay, I was lucky. I thought I would have disabled it.
What do we have here?
It's the same base attack as Shenhe's weapon, but the thing with Shenhe's weapon, right, is I can't actually view the stats of it when I think about it, so no one's going to show it. The thing with Shenhe's weapon, right, is it has a high base attack, and Shenhe's buff, like Xian Yun, scales on base attack. Cool. Or sorry, not base attack, based on total attack. So it makes sense to have a high base attack weapon, right? It's like 700 and 20 base attack or something at level 90. And then it only has like 15% attack because the higher base attack you have, the lower substat you have, right? So you only have like 15% attack percent in Xian Yun's and Shenhe's weapon. The difference is Shenhe's weapon justifies the higher base, right? Because of the fact that you have a lower substat for gain and base stat. The difference between, you know, a 608 base attack weapon or 674 base attack weapon that had 33% attack and a 700 base attack weapon that has 15% attack is not that big. It's relatively similar. To be clear, a higher base attack weapon would slightly change the value you get from other attack percent stats on your character. But what really makes Shenhe's weapon make sense is because of the fact that Shenhe's weapon gives a whack ton of attack percent in the passive. And therefore it gives you much more value for having high base attack, because it's kind of functioning like you have 700 base attack and like 50% attack in the weapon. Whereas there is no additional attack percent gained in Xian Yun's weapon. So I really honestly don't get the point of making it high base attack with low substat, because it's not functionally that different from making it 674 with 33% attack. Like, it's very similar. If you go and do the calcs as if that was different, it's very, very similar. There's no reason to do it without adding attack percent to the passive to that weapon, is my point. So, yes, it's useless on everyone else. It's garbage. I really don't recommend it. It's literally useless on anyone else. So, if you're engaging specifically with our plunge gimmick and you really like that screenshot damage, it technically synergizes with their gimmick quite well, but her buffing is not the only part of her kit, and it's not the only thing she'll ever be used for. She'll be used outside of just her plunge gimmick, because she is Anna, and she has some grouping, and she's a healer, so yeah. Anyways, I think that's my stream. I gotta do my frickin' dailies, and then do stuff with my friends, and then figure my stupid thumbnail out for tomorrow. Oh, the teaser for my video, if you want to look forward to it. I'm finally making another fixing a Genshin account video. This one's a little bit different from the previous one, because the previous one I did was my friend's Genshin account from like 5 months ago, and that was an account she basically abandoned, and I originally was planning on that to be a series, but this one is not going to be a series, because I was like, that other one I was planning to be a series because I was going to do it differently. I thought I could make multiple videos, but I realized it just didn't make sense to make it multiple videos. There's no real content to be made with multiple videos in it. So I would have made that original one differently, but that's the most viewed fucking video on my channel. So I made a fixing my brother's account video, basically, and that should be out tomorrow, as long as I don't die, most likely. The video's already done. I just got to make a thumbnail. So, yeah. What would be our alternative? Yeah, Fav. Almost assuredly, you're going to use Fav on Cloud Retainer. Shenhe's weapon makes you go from 4k to 4.5k in passive alone. Yeah, like the passive is what makes the base attack higher make sense on Shenhe. It's just relatively pointless on what's her bucket. So it's just I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why they're making these hyper niche weapons. But if you're a whale and you really like the idea of it buffing Xiao more, go wild, I guess. Go wild. It will be the weapon that, because of the energy refunding, right, it functionally makes her have 50 energy cost. Gives her higher base attack, which means it should be easy to do. Like, we'll do some quick napkin math to end out the stream. I'm not going to show the page, but I got to check what her base attack is. She has 335 base attack. 335 plus 741, that means 1076 base attack, times, 1 plus 0.466 plus 0.466 plus 0.466 plus, we're going to assume if you're getting her signature weapon, you're doing a very high investment, Xian Yun, so I'm going to assume you have at least 30% in your substats for attack, so 15% Ishan, Flower, and Feather. So plus an additional 0.3. There we go. So that puts her at 2900 attack without any flat attack, to be clear. So with the flat attack from the feather, that puts her at 3200 attack. Right, it's like not that insane. So 3200 attack with her that's a pretty high investment. Like it's triple attack percent. You could that's not with 2-piece attack percent. You could do 2-piece attack percent to maximize her buff theoretically. If you're heck bent on trying to get the maximum Xiao plunge damage, that's not. I'm trying to check more like a more realistic thing because she's an animal unit. You're probably gonna use her on VV. So 3200 attack. If we compare that to Fav, if we compare that to like a high investment Fav build that let you do triple attack percent. With just enough ER substats, right? So you don't have to do Fav with, because my 2500 attack estimate was basically Fav with an attack percent, or sorry, with an ER timepiece and then attack percent substats. So if we do the same build but with Fav, Fav is, what is Fav? Wait, I can check in game what I'm doing. I think I have a level 90 Fav, right? Oh, God's sake, of course I don't. Okay, I gotta go check what it is. Fav Codex. I swear I'm ending the stream eventually. 510 plus 335, so that's 845 base attack, and then we're using the same exact theoretical artifacts. Although these theoretical artifacts would have to have more ER substats, so I guess I will sacrifice the 0.3 that I added on to the end a little bit. I'll change it to like 0.2. So again, like this is a theoretical high investment build. So that's 29. Oh, maybe my 2500 was with a high investment build earlier. Whoops, my bad. I thought it was a realistic investment. Okay. So this is triple attack percent with Fab with 20% in attack substats. No flat stats is actually 2500. So you gain meaningful value, but again, you have to engage with the freaking plunging gimmick. It's so bad. So 700, it's a 700 attack difference functionally. 700 times 1.7 is 1200 flat bonus, right? So I don't know. 1200 flat bonus for a signature weapon, and then you also get the additional damage percent, which also increases the damage you get from your flat bonus, to be clear. It synergizes with their plunging gimmick well. It's just like, you have to do the plunging gimmick. It's really annoying. Like, it means you have to switch her weapon anytime you freaking use her. Like, it's so dumb. Getting a character signature weapon, and then you still have to switch off the weapon all the time because they made the weapon have to engage with a gimmick. Like, even though the character can obviously be used without the gimmick. It's so dumb. So, like I said, it's not. There's a lot of like slight changes I'd like to see from her kit. We'll see if they happen. That's all I got. Use Fav. Also with flat, if you like prior to, because if you do Fav and you have like a bunch of energy recharge, if you have like Fav energy recharge subsets, so you have like 10% ER in each piece, that's like 50% ER. You're at 100, you're at almost 200 ER there. On her, you might need more than 10% average on each piece, realistically. I'm trying to think how much flat attack you could justify, right? So anyway, a high investment Fav build can definitely get up to 2600 attack, probably towards 2700, right? So Fav is the way to go. It also benefits the rest of the team. It's a universal option for her. Benefits the rest of the team, gives energy to them to use Fav. And and also notably Fav, because of the fact that right, Fav can generate energy when she deals damage, extra on-field particles for herself. That's extra energy that helps mitigate the issue of needing to do triple E. So if you're going to use Cloud Retainer with just E plunge or EE plunge, where you're only getting 3 animal particles, then getting the clear particles can help a lot with that. So it helps a lot with her low field time playstyle if that's how she releases. So use Fav. Fav impact, indeed. You want to know my conspiracy theory, by the way? This is the last thing. I'm ending the stream after I say this. My conspiracy theory is they keep on making friggin' Animo Catalyst users. You can use Prototype Amber too, by the way. Prototype Amber would be a good option with Freena in particular. But anyways, they keep on making friggin' Animo Catalyst users that are like supports, Baiju, and now Cloud Retainer with energy issues. I think it's because they just hate the fact that they made TDDS. They realize that they're like, crap, we made a 3-star weapon that people can get in oodles and bundles that can give strong DPS upgrades to characters. So they make characters have whack energy problems that they make supportive catalysts where it would make sense to use this weapon on them. They make those characters have energy problems so that you can't use this weapon. that's my conspiracy theory. That's the stream. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll learn something. I'll have more thoughts, of course. If you're interested, check out my Discord. Yeah, whatever beta updates happen, I will put my thoughts there, and whatever new ideas and blah 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 that I have. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I look forward to 4.4.